Chapter 457. Ha, Chi. Chen Hao's arrogant words made Mo Wuxian laugh in anger. The aura around his body was also released unscrupulously. The monstrous demon Qi filled half the sky in an instant, and formed in equal force with Chen Hao's aura. Faintly, Mo Wuxian had the upper hand. Soul Fighter, as the #1 genius disciple of the Broken Heart Hall of the Limitless Demon Palace, was outstanding in terms of talent, combat strength, and aptitude. During the genius battle, he had the ability to challenge people above his level. He was much stronger than Jiang Hai, the #1 disciple of the Limitless Immortal Palace's Cold Plum Hall. And at this moment, he was angered by Chen Hao. The pressure and aura he displayed proved all this. All the disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace, more than 300,000 cultivators of the Demon Path, and Immortal Path, looked at Soul Fighter in horror. You're only at the early stage of the creation realm. I'd like to see what ability you have to be so arrogant. Pa. Soul Fighter's aura surged, and the fear in his heart was instantly cut off. He stared coldly at Chen Hao and said, "If you die, they can still be my maids and drag out an ignoble existence. And now, since you're here, then all of you can die for me. Pa. I'll make you watch helplessly as they perish. Ha. I hope your strength is stronger than your mouth. Otherwise, you don't even have the qualifications to fight with me. According to the agreement, let's begin. Kill them all without mercy. Kill without mercy. Okay." Boom. One of the 19 young experts besides Soul Fighter suddenly rushed to the central area where the heavenly rivers of the 3 realms intersected. These disciples were all Soul Fighter's assistants in the various halls of the Limitless Demon Palace. Although they were much weaker than Soul Fighter, they were still at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm. How could they be afraid of Chen Hao, who was only at the early stage of the creation realm? What's more, including the Demon Path disciples who were fishing in troubled waters, there were a total of 27 people. They could wear Chen Hao and the other 4 to death. What was there to be afraid of? Be careful. Chen Hao looked at Tantai Lian and transmitted his voice. Piss. Boom. Tantai Lian, who was dressed in a pink dress, flew towards the intersection of the heavenly rivers of the 3 realms like a burning flame. Among the 4 girls, her battle prowess was the weakest, but she was the one who worked the hardest to cultivate. However, this was only a comparison between the 4 women. Among the 4 women, no matter who it was, they were all rare geniuses in the Wuxia Immortal Palace. Even though they were only at the peak of the initial stage of the manifestation realm, the inheritance of the phoenix, as well as Tantai Lian's powerful vital essence control, allowed her to possess strength that was comparable to geniuses at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm. Moreover, at this moment, she still had a set of middle-grade spiritual treasures that was comparable to upper-grade spiritual treasures and contained powerful functions that had not been exposed. It was precisely because of this that Chen Hao dared to send Tantai Lian out. Ha! Beauty, you didn't have to die. But now, he had no choice but to ruthlessly destroy the flower, even though it was a ruined flower. Pa! The demonic Dao disciple stared at Tantai Lian, his eyes filled with lust as he spoke in an unbridled manner. The people of the Devil Dao, except for those who practiced orthodox cultivation methods, could basically see through the existence of a woman's primordial yin at a glance. As for Tantai Lian, she was already a serious woman. Therefore, at this moment, this fellow naturally wanted to use the most vicious words to infuriate Tantai Lian. Unfortunately, what welcomed him was scorching hot heavenly fire. 9-fold heavenly fire? Unfortunately, you are only at the peak of the initial stage of the manifestation realm. If you were at the late stage of the manifestation realm, I would really be afraid. Break for me. Rumble. The demonic Dao disciple clearly knew about Tantai Lian. Facing the terrifying 9-fold heavenly fire, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. He struck out with his palm and advanced instead of retreating. The protective vital essence around him condensed into powerful energy that forcefully blocked the heavenly fire. The curtains to an intense battle immediately opened. Apart from those who already knew about Tantai Lian, the people from the 3 sides were all shocked. Her opponent was a genius disciple of the Wuxia Immortal Palace, But Tantai Lian was not at a disadvantage even though she was 2 small realms below him. The 9 heavens fire that filled the sky was like a sea of fire from purgatory. Under her powerful control, it condensed into numerous profound and terrifying formations. The power that was released caused countless old men at the peak of the late stage of Blessed Realm to be shocked and terrified. The ones who were most affected were none other than the sect master and grand supreme elders of the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao sect. In the intersect competition more than 3 years ago, Tantai Lian was merely a very talented but low-level young girl in their eyes. But today, the power she displayed already left them in the dust. You are indeed difficult to deal with. Then I'll let you experience my true power. Condense. The demonic Dao disciple used a full 5 minutes but still could not do anything to Tantai Lian. Finally, he could not help but begin to condense his ultimate move. Die. Boom. Ah. How is that possible? At that moment, countless exclamations erupted from the 3 sides. They originally thought that the demonic Dao disciple, who was about to condense his ultimate move, would definitely display an absolute advantage in terms of realms and defeat Tantai Lian. But what they did not expect was that Tantai Lian did not give him a chance. The demonic Dao disciple had deliberately opened up a distance of 10,000 feet between the two of them. He had enough time to condense his ultimate move, but at that moment, when Tantai Lian spat out the word die, a dazzling red light suddenly shone under her feet. The aura of the middle-grade numinous treasure battle boots shone out, and 2 flames that were 1,000 feet long gushed out. They were like 2 long tails. There was nothing profound about them, just the purest explosion of energy. However, they instantly increased Tantai Lian's speed by more than 10 times. She became one with her sword. Her essence, qi, and soul were completely gathered at the tip of her sword. It was like a laser. A shrill and terrified scream erupted. Splat. Boom. A cloud of blood exploded, and it was immediately reduced to ashes by the terrifyingly high temperature of the 9-fold heavenly fire. The demonic Dao disciple at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm disappeared without a trace. Only the fallen sword and storage ring remained in the eyes of the crowd. There was a burnt smell in the air. At that moment, the army of more than 300,000 people was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. No one had expected this. Even Xia Lingfeng and the others who knew that Tantai Lian had a middle-grade spiritual treasure set did not expect that a pair of combat boots would have such an unexpected effect. It had forcefully turned the opponent's secret skill into a fatal blow. Good kill. Good kill. Someone from the Immortal Dao sect took the lead to cheer. Immediately, nearly 40,000 people from the Immortal Dao sect erupted into thunderous cheers. Sneak attack with a numinous treasure? What kind of skill is that? A grand, old, and cold voice suddenly rang out from the void. It was not loud, but what was shocking was that it directly suppressed the cheers of tens of thousands of people. The moment he heard the voice, Chen Hao's expression changed, and he looked up at the sky. Ah, welcome, ancestor. When the first leader of the 10 demonic Dao sects heard the voice, he was obviously very shocked and pleasantly surprised. He suddenly looked up at the void, cupped his fists, and bowed respectfully. Half-step human immortal. He's a half-step human immortal. Who is he? Chen Hao looked at Xia Lingfeng, who was shocked and frowning. The first leader of the demonic Dao sect in the East Continent 300 years ago, and also the most powerful expert, Yi Tian Xie. I didn't expect him to be a half-step human immortal. Yi Tian Xie, half-step human immortal. Phew. Chen Hao took a deep breath. Originally, the only pressure he felt was not pressure. It was just that he was worried that Yi Tian Xie would break the agreement and start the war between the 3 realms. However, Chen Hao believed that as long as he had a little bit of time, he could use his endless numinous treasures and his personal strength to make Yi Tian Xie die even more miserably. However, Chen Hao did not want that kind of ending. After all, no matter how powerful a person was, there was a limit to it. At that time, no matter if it was the Immortal Dao, Demon Dao, there would be rivers of blood, and the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. How could he be willing to do something that would cause the mortals to suffer when the immortals fought? However, that possibility was very small, because he already had a strategy. But now, the appearance of a half-step human immortal made Chen Hao feel a great challenge. Wuxia and Xianxia snorted coldly and slowly landed in front of the demonic Dao army. He had red hair, red beard, and red eyebrows. His eyes were a terrifying blood red. But the most terrifying thing was his face. Half of his face was wrinkled, like an old man with one foot in the grave, giving off a strong sense of death. The other half was smooth and delicate, containing a boundless vitality. This was because this old man was at the end of his lifespan. But he was very lucky and broke through to the half-step human immortal stage at this critical moment, giving him a new lease of life. If he could trigger the heavenly punishment and successfully pass the tribulation, he would return to his normal appearance and gain 3,000 years of lifespan. This gambling battle is a battle between the demonic Dao and the young disciples of the immortal Dao. The fight for the genius fate must be built on true strength. Who gave you the guts to use your middle-grade numinous treasures and launch a sneak attack? Wuxia and Xianxia exuded billowing demonic qi and swept towards the immortal Dao people. His scarlet eyes locked onto Xia Lingfeng. Xia Lingfeng was furious and wanted to refute. But what shocked him was that his opponent's terrifying aura went straight into the depths of his mind. For a moment, he could not speak. Boom! At this moment, Chen Hao stepped out and stood in front of Xia Lingfeng. His aura did not increase, but his dark eyes were like two sharp swords, piercing through Wuxia and Xianxia's aura. Where did this old dog come from? A half-dead thing dares to come out and spout nonsense? Open your dog eyes and see what is fair? What did you say? Who do you think you are? Who are you to interrupt when the old man is speaking? Wuxia and Xianxia did not expect anyone to refute him and not be afraid of his half-step human immortal aura. More importantly, his aura was not as simple as a half-step human immortal. It was built on the foundation of the heaven-defying evil skill that he cultivated, and its most powerful ability was to intimidate people. And his opponent was just an early-stage manifestation young man. How could he not be angry? Chapter 458. Who do you think you are? You're already so old, yet you can't tell right from wrong. Have you been living in a dog's brain? Where did the rule come from that we can't use spiritual treasures? How retarded can you be to call a head-on battle a sneak attack? Look at your 20 disciples. Which one of you is a direct descendant of the Eastern Continent's demon sect? Fair? Are you even fit to talk about fairness? Chen Hao's words became even more domineering and arrogant. He stared at the other party with disdain and said, "If you want to be fair, sure. Kill these 20 idiots from the limitless demon palace for me and use your direct descendants. We guarantee that we won't use any spiritual artifacts." Chen Hao's every word stunned the hundreds of thousands of cultivators present. Xia Lingfeng and the rest of the immortal Dao cultivators were delighted, but everyone was also sweating. That was a half-step human immortal, an existence that could kill a peak late-stage manifestation expert with a wave of his hand. Especially for a 1,000-year-old demon like Oda Xiecheng, who had been cultivating his whole life and had been stuck at the peak late-stage manifestation realm for countless years. Whether it was battle experience or secret techniques, he must have reached the peak of perfection. At this moment, he had comprehended the barrier and stepped into the half-step human immortal realm. How powerful would he be? Others might not be able to sense it, but Xia Lingfeng, who was the first to bear the brunt of the pressure, knew very well how powerful this old man was. Presumptuous. Presumptuous? Oda Xiecheng's already strange face became even more twisted. He wanted to strangle Chen Hao to death immediately, but he couldn't. At this moment, if he attacked first, it would mean that he had breached the contract. What would that mean? The true outbreak of the Great War of the Immortals and Demons. Although the immortal Dao only had about 40,000 people, as long as a portion of the experts fled to the demon realm, it would be enough to cause chaos. Although the Eastern Continent would definitely be in a worse state and was destined to be divided between the demon realm and the demon realm, the consequences would still be unimaginable. If not for this, they would have already gone to war. Why would they force each other to sign a contract? Soul Fighter snorted in disdain. Originally, When this old man had appeared, he had hoped that he would show off his might. But he didn't expect that not only would he fail to show off his might, he would be angered half to death by Chen Hao's arrogance. Next, no one dares to come? After killing that disciple, Tantai Lien stood in the air. Facing the bickering between Chen Hao and the old fart, she was not afraid at all. Her fighting spirit was still burning. At this time, seeing that the old fart was so angry at Chen Hao that he was at a loss for words, she pointed her sword at Soul Fighter and the others and said, "What are you waiting for?" Soul Fighter looked at one of the disciples. They had already decided on the order of appearance. Originally, there was no pressure, but now, there was Chen Hao, a guy who they didn't know how strong he was. In the beginning, these fellows who had not come into contact with Chen Hao did not take a creation stage cultivator seriously. However, at this moment, regardless of whether Chen Hao was a hothead or blindly confident, he was definitely not a simple person since he dared to challenge a half-step human immortal. Now that things have come to this, we have no way out. It's just a middle-grade spirit treasure. As long as you get close to her, you can wear her down with your strength. Don't give her a chance to launch a surprise attack. Fight steadily and surely. Even if you want to form your ultimate move, you have to do it as you fight. You can't use all your energy and true yuan to form your ultimate move. Go. Soul Fighter transmitted his voice. Hiss. As the second disciple appeared, the battle began again. This time, Tantai Lien fought extremely hard as her opponent was prepared. Although she managed to kill her opponent in the end, she was severely injured and could not fight anymore. This made Soul Fighter and the others look smug and arrogant once again. However, on the side of the immortal path, Xia Lingfeng and the others who knew the truth were not worried. Instead, they were looking forward to it. This was because Tantai Lien had only revealed her middle-grade spirit treasure combat boots from the beginning to the end. Vaguely, the crowd had guessed Chen Hao's purpose. It's your turn. After the demon path eliminated Tantai Lien, it was the demon path's turn according to their agreement. The 7 demon path disciples were all at the peak of the late-stage manifestation realm. They were legitimate disciples of the demon path and the top geniuses of the Eastern Continent's demon path. However, at this moment, all of them looked solemn and fearful before the battle. Even the number 1 person of the 10 demon path sects did not expect the Eastern Continent's immortal path disciples to be so powerful. Tantai Lien, who was the first to appear, was definitely the weakest of the 5, but she had killed 2 demon path disciples. Furthermore, they were geniuses from the limitless demon palace. How could the demon path's geniuses compare? Their advantage in terms of cultivation level was nothing. If there were no accidents, the 7 of them would probably all end up dead. Upon hearing the words of the demon path's number 1 person, the 7 demon path disciples looked at him. The contract has been signed. There's no other way. You only need to go up and go through the motions. If you feel that something is amiss, immediately admit defeat. Anyway, our goal is to reap the benefits. It doesn't matter if we don't reap the benefits. The most important thing is to stay alive. Thank you, sect leader Hu. With the demon path's number 1 person's voice transmission, the 7 disciples' tightly knitted brows relaxed slightly. Who would be willing to go up and die knowing that they were no match for their opponent? Besides, they were still young. Seeing the opponent's character, Chen Hao changed his decision at the last minute. Originally, he arranged for Xia Yuyu to appear, but now, he let Helian Wuzi appear. Chen Hao's task for Helian Wuzi was still to kill 2 limitless Demon Palace disciples. This meant that Helian Wuzi had to defeat all 7 Demon Path disciples before it was possible. This was something that Xia Yuyu could not do. Even if the 7 Demon Path disciples were relatively weak and were fishing in troubled waters, it would still consume a lot of energy in a situation where they could not fight to the death. But Helian Wuzi could. There was no other reason. Helian Wuzi, who had awakened the power of reincarnation and incorporated the mystery of reincarnation into every move, had a recovery speed that was not inferior to Chen Hao's. Her ability to fight for a long time was definitely the strongest among the 4 girls. Little Wu, you don't have to use all your strength to deal with the Demon Path disciples. They won't fight to the death with us. Just defeat them and preserve your strength. When Helian Wuzi appeared, Chen Hao transmitted his voice. The truth was as Chen Hao expected. Trash, trash. You 7 demon path disciples can't even take down one person, you're all trash. Seeing that the demon path disciples were defeated one by one and none of them fought to the death, the number 1 demon path disciple was so angry that his teeth itched. Soul Fighter and the rest also had gloomy expressions. It's already good that we can participate in the battle, how can we be considered trash? We 7 disciples are all direct descendants of the demon path, how can we be compared to you? Such a difficult task, it's better for you to complete it. If you can't complete it, then you're really trash. The number 1 demon path disciple said disdainfully. When he saw Tan Tai Lian's battle, he did not have any thoughts. But now that he saw Helian Wuxi fighting 7 people in a row and was still calm and composed, as if nothing had happened, he faintly felt that something was wrong. He was a little regretful that he got involved in this muddy water. He regretted even more that when Xia Lingfeng asked for an exorbitant condition 3,000 years ago, he did not even think about it and agreed. Now, if he lost, he would have to give up 20 million kilometers of land. Brother Mo, the few of them are very strong in fighting beyond their level. This time, I accepted your invitation to come here to help, but I don't want to lose my life. Just when everyone's gaze was on Soul Fighter and the rest, the disciple who was about to fight frowned and looked at Soul Fighter and said, "That's right. I don't want to die here. If I knew it was so dangerous, I wouldn't have come." This Helian Wuxi fought 7 people in a row. Although they are all trash, but look at her aura now. And that Qin Shui is even more troublesome, and the most troublesome one is Chen Hao. If this goes on, even if we win, I'm afraid more than 10 of us will die. Yes, Brother Mo, it's not that we don't want to help you, but we can't joke with our lives. Didn't that kid just say that we can fight a group battle? If it's a group battle, we will definitely be able to kill all of them with the least losses. Brother Mo, I will participate in the group battle. If you want me to fight now, I'm sorry, I don't want to die. If you insist, I'd rather admit defeat and deal with it. With one person taking the lead, the others immediately followed suit. Although Soul Fighter was talented and would definitely have amazing achievements in the future, who would be willing to be a stepping stone? It was just that because of Soul Fighter's ruthlessness, no one dared to be the first to say it. But now, after the disciple who was about to fight said it in front of everyone, they no longer had any scruples. Hearing everyone's words, Soul Fighter's expression became extremely ugly. He was vicious and merciless. In his eyes, everyone was just a tool to be used. Naturally, he was most willing to see these guys fight for their lives. But now, everyone's words made him understand that no one was an idiot. If they were really like the 7 disciples of the Demon Tao and didn't put in any effort, casually dealing with them and then admitting defeat, what could he do? Boom. Soul Fighter didn't say a word. He directly released a terrifying aura and flew into the air. Seeing this scene, Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly. Although his sharp senses sensed what the other party was talking about, he couldn't hear the voice transmission. Now that he saw Soul Fighter appear, how could Chen Hao not understand what was going on? Of course, he didn't think that Soul Fighter wanted to fight now. Before he appeared, even if you gave him 10 guts, he wouldn't dare. All this was within Chen Hao's expectations. But he didn't expect that after killing just 2, this bunch of gutless guys couldn't hold on anymore. Humph, Chen Hao, didn't you say you wanted a group battle? I'll agree to it now, so as not to waste time. Let's fight it out with the remaining people from both sides. Chi, I couldn't ask for more. But I'll say this first. Since it's a group battle, as long as one person from either side admits defeat, it's considered a loss. Do you understand what I mean? Chen Hao directly flew into the air and flew to Helian Wuxi's side. His eyes were full of provocation and disdain as he spoke. Don't worry. Today, it's either you or me. Soul Fighter said confidently. After he finished speaking, he looked at the remaining 17 disciples and said, all of you listen carefully. No matter who it is, you have to persevere with me to the end. Otherwise, I'll be the first to kill you. No problem. With just the 4 of them, what do we have to fear if we join forces? Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, streams of flowing light flew over as fast as lightning. Soul Fighter took the lead. His whole body was full of violent aura and fighting spirit, surging out. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 459. Chen Hao, Helian Wuxi, Xia Yuyu, and Chen Shui. The four of them instantly flew to one place. Each of them was filled with fighting spirit, and the aura around their bodies violently soared. Facing Mo Wuxin's 18 people who were rushing over with monstrous auras, the four of them didn't have the slightest bit of fear. The battle was about to break out. Why did he summon his spirit treasure? Xia Lingfeng and the others did not expect Chen Hao to agree to a group battle. What kind of concept was it to fight 18 people with 4 people? However, Xia Lingfeng, Yuan Tai Ran, and the others who had seen Chen Hao's spirit treasure did not expect that the four of them did not summon their spirit treasure. Were they still hiding their strength at this moment? Nearly 1,000 feet away, Soul Fighter's 18 people emitted a terrifying fighting spirit and monstrous demonic aura that swept thousands of miles. 17 super geniuses at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm and Soul Fighter, who was more powerful than the peak of the late stage of the creation realm, burst out at the same time. How powerful was it? At this moment, the disciples representing Wuji Immortal Palace, Demon Palace, and Monster Palace were all aghast. They had to admit that the genius disciples gathered by Soul Fighter were definitely more powerful than them. Not to mention the others, even Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxu's expressions became extremely solemn and worried. They understood why Chen Hao had not revealed his spirit treasure set until now. Naturally, it was for the battle with Wuji Immortal Palace and Monster Palace. However, facing 18 people, especially the powerful Soul Fighter, the four of them could not form a powerful battle formation. How could they win? You guys kill outside. Seeing that they were only 1,000 feet away, Chen Hao suddenly transmitted his voice to the 3 girls. At the same time, his whole body was like a sharp sword, rushing toward the 18 people at a terrifying speed. The 3 girls were shocked. What is this guy doing? Is he courting death? Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened in surprise. In a chaotic battle, when there was a great disparity in numbers, the best way was for the 4 of them to work together and fight side by side. However, Chen Hao took the lead and rushed toward the 18 people. In everyone's eyes, this was simply a retard. Wasn't this asking for trouble? Come on, kill them for me. Soul Fighter was startled at first, but then he was overjoyed. Die. Following Soul Fighter's words, the 18 people instantly burst into loud shouts, and one by one, they launched an incomparably powerful attack. The sword light seemed to interweave into a sword net that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. In a flash, it completely enveloped Chen Hao, who was rapidly flying over. Split. Just as the sword was about to reach him, Chen Hao's figure instantly split into 5. The 5 figures stopped in an instant and brandished their swords to attack. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion and devastating energy swept out in an instant. Just this momentum alone was enough to shock the hundreds of thousands of onlookers. Just at this moment, Chen Hao, Helian Wuxi, and Xia Yuyu also charged over. Although they were also shocked and didn't understand the purpose of Chen Hao's actions, they didn't go against Chen Hao's intentions in the slightest. They believed that since Chen Hao did this, he would naturally be able to bear it. Chen Shui's attack was the incomparably fierce platinum sky-splitting slash, which contained the will of the destruction sword Dao. Helian Wuxi stabbed out with her sword. It was as if a clear and cold full moon had risen in the sky, causing the surrounding thousands of square meters to seem to be enveloped in a layer of ice-cold frost. It was still the moonlight sword that Chen Hao had given her, but the degree of compatibility with her at this moment couldn't be compared to back then. Within the clear and cold sword light, it contained the most mysterious power of reincarnation between heaven and earth. Xia Yuyu's sword was the hidden attribute, the will of the heartless sword Dao. During the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao sect competition, she only used it twice at the very end. At this moment, her heartless sword Dao was actually a level higher than Chen Shui's destruction sword Dao. Her clear and beautiful eyes no longer contained any emotions. At this moment, the main firepower was concentrated on Chen Hao. However, although Qin Shui, Heli and Wuxia and Xiaoyu were attacking from the periphery and displayed their strongest strength, it was impossible for them to succeed in one move. After all, none of the opponents were weak. Without a tough battle, it would be difficult to kill them. However, who pushed? The three disciples who blocked Qin Shui, Heli and Wuxia, and Xiaoyu let out angry roars one by one. However, before they could finish, they stopped abruptly. 3 streaks of sword light pierced through the 3 people's foreheads, killing them instantly. The 3 people's eyes were filled with anger and surprise, but they were not looking at the 3 girls, but at their companions beside them. Endless resentment, endless frustration, and endless anger. The moment their consciousness disappeared, they were still thinking, "Why did you push me?" They could obviously block the opponent's attack, but because of the sudden burst of energy fluctuations from the guy beside them, there was a deviation in their attack. In a battle between experts, the slightest difference could lead to a huge difference, which directly led to their death. Qin Shui, Heli and Wuxia, and Xiaoyu succeeded in one move, but they were not surprised. Instead, their eyes shone with deep confusion and surprise. What was going on? How could it be so easy to succeed? Fuck you, do you know how to fight together? Don't affect me. Why are you squeezing me with your energy? You're obviously the one who's affecting me. Everyone saw an extremely comical scene. This was obviously a life and death battle, and it was a group battle, but 3 of Soul Fighter's 18 people were killed by the 3 girls in an instant. What was even more comical was that when the 3 people died, as well as now, a war of words broke out among Soul Fighter's group, and they were all cursing the people beside them. What was this called? It was like a group of mobs who had not undergone any coordination training. They fought together, but before they could even pose a threat to the enemy, they were already in disarray. Something's wrong, everyone spread out. Initially, Soul Fighter Mo was also looking angrily at the disciples beside him. However, when he saw that everyone was doing the same thing, Soul Fighter Mo's expression became extremely fearful. They were all experts at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm. Although they had never worked together before, they were basically working together in a battle. How could everyone make mistakes? This was absolutely impossible. A bunch of idiots. You call yourselves geniuses of the limitless demon palace, but you're almost scared to death by me, right? You actually made a mistake when you attacked. Combine. Chen Hao's mocking laughter, filled with disdain, came out from the terrifying energy explosion. The 5 figures suddenly combined into one, and after breaking the first wave of the most terrifying joint attack, he violently pointed at Soul Fighter. No one knew that the 5 figures combined into one was still Chen Hao's doppelganger. His real body had long been hidden near Qin Shui, Heli and Wuxia, and Xiaoyu. After stepping into the blessed realm, his ability to restrain his aura and merge with all things in the world had an astonishing increase. Even if Soul Fighter had the God's Eye, he could not sense the existence of Chen Hao's real body. What was Chen Hao's real body doing? He was using the 1000 transformation profound art, which was most suitable for a chaotic battle. He was doing it very covertly and restrained. If Soul Fighter and the others could stop urging their energy and calm down to sense it, they would naturally be able to capture the profound 1000 transformation profound art. But at this moment, in the midst of a great battle, the energy was wreaking havoc. The monstrous devil Qi and Chen Hao's doppelganger had deliberately simulated the 1000 transformation profound art's aura to conceal it, causing them to be unable to sense any abnormalities. They all thought that it was because of the suppression of the energy of the people around them, which led to the failure. Boom, boom, boom. In panic, Soul Fighter and the others faced the threat of death and crazily raised their energy to the peak state. Moreover, they quickly distanced themselves from each other. Layers of sword shadows, all kinds of profound and powerful attacks, blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Some people were covering for others, and some people were condensing their ultimate moves. The real peak battle had only officially begun at this moment. The 3 women were always on the periphery, not daring to enter the middle of Soul Fighter and the others, while Chen Hao arrogantly rushed into the crowd, killing left and right, constantly closing in on Soul Fighter. Puff puff. Every few minutes, someone would be beheaded. But the injuries that Chen Hao and the others suffered were also shocking. And this was after Chen Hao secretly used the 1000 transformation spell to slightly change the situation of the opponent's attacks. But Chen Hao and the others, who were bathed in blood, became more and more courageous as they fought. Soul Fighter and the others were more and more frightened. Kill, kill, kill for me. Soul Fighter roared crazily. At least half of the injuries that Chen Hao and the others suffered were caused by this guy's attacks. It had to be said that Soul Fighter's strength was indeed incomparably strong. Although the opponent's numbers were decreasing, the situation was becoming more and more unfavorable for Chen Hao and the others. Xia Lingfeng and the others from the Immortal Dao sect were incomparably nervous, and even more puzzled. At this point, why did Chen Hao and the others not use their full set of spirit treasures, and were bitterly holding on? In just over 10 minutes, whether it was spirit or inner yuan, everyone could see that Chen Hao and the others had consumed a lot of energy. It looked like they would not be able to hold on for much longer, and would be killed by the opponent. Boss is so insidious and so hateful. Huang Wenshu gazed at Chen Hao, who was fighting, and there was no trace of worry on his face. Instead, there was a trace of excitement as he transmitted his voice to Jiang Hai. Yes, the 3 sisters-in-law are also ruthless. It's not easy to pretend to be like this, and they are seriously injured. It seems that Boss can no longer tolerate Soul Fighter and the other disciples of Limitless Demon Palace. This time, none of them will be able to leave the Eastern continent alive, of course. But I don't think the chaos at the beginning was because Soul Fighter and the others were too stupid. It must be Boss's doing. Seeing that there were only 7 people left around him, and that each and every one of them was gathering towards him with fear and unwillingness, Soul Fighter knew that he could not wait any longer. With a long howl that resounded through the heavens and earth, demon chi suddenly surged out from his body. His howl was mournful, as if he was enduring endless pain and torment. His handsome face twisted with jealousy, and in an instant, a pitch-black tentacle emerged from between his eyebrows. Every tentacle contained a monstrous evil aura and endless mysteries. Puff, 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 puff. A series of miserable screams suddenly erupted. What shocked everyone was that the black tentacles that came out from between Soul Fighter's eyebrows directly penetrated the foreheads of the 7 people around him. Chapter 460. No one had expected Soul Fighter to be so cold-blooded, heartless, and cruel. At that moment, the 7 men's eyes were filled with fear, pain, and boundless anger. They wanted to struggle, they wanted to resist, they wanted to curse, but it was too late. Who would have thought that Wuxia would make a move on them? If they were even a little bit prepared, their souls and wills would not have been restrained and their bodies controlled by Soul Fighter. The terrifying devouring power invaded the depths of their souls and controlled their bodies and souls. The only thing they could feel was boundless pain and the rapid destruction of their wills. In an instant, the 7 people's pupils lost focus. Their bodies trembled violently and shrank. Their life force, true essence, chi, and spirit were all being devoured by the black tentacles at a terrifying speed and surged into Soul Fighter's body. Boom! Soul Fighter's robe instantly swelled into a ball and exploded. His long hair raged in the wind, and his body spewed out waves of destructive and violent energy. Boom, 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 boom. A series of explosions began to spread from Soul Fighter's body in all directions. The space between heaven and earth seemed to be unable to withstand such a violent energy, causing terrifying spatial explosions. Dark spatial cracks appeared, causing hundreds of thousands of people to cry out in alarm. In the blink of an eye, the 7-peak late manifestation stage disciples who had been drained of their energy were directly turned into dust. And Soul Fighter, who had cruelly used the Devil Sex devouring technique on his 7 companions, his aura soared to an extremely terrifying level. Ha! Boom, boom, boom. Soul Fighter looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. With his laughter, the void rumbled, and the world shook. All the cultivators within a radius of thousands of miles could not bear this kind of pressure. One by one, they hurriedly activated their protective Zhenyuan. Xia Lingfeng and the other masters of the 3 forces who were watching from a close distance could not help but retreat one after another. Half-step human immortal? No, beyond that. He's close to a human immortal. How is this possible? What kind of technique is this? At this moment, even the half-step human immortal Noda Xie revealed an extremely shocked expression. His eyes were filled with fear and passion as he looked at Soul Fighter. Chen Hao was also extremely shocked in his heart. He suddenly sent out 3 rays of energy to envelop Chen Shui, Helian Wuxi and Xia Yuyu, blocking in front of the 3 of them. Chen Hao could clearly sense that Soul Fighter's strength and aura had surpassed that of a half-step human immortal. He was even stronger than the half-step human immortal old dog. It's useless. There is only life and death in this battle. All of you must die. Ha! You forced my hand 800 years. I burned 800 years of my lifespan. Ha! You forced me to do this. I will make you wish you were dead, ha ha. Soul Fighter said in a deranged manner. His voice was filled with boundless hatred and sorrow. Yes, it was solemn and moving. Burning 800 years of his lifespan had almost exhausted his life force. However, compared to the backlash of using this secret technique, it was insignificant. After all, with his talent, he only needed a few more years to break through to the human immortal stage and gain a long lifespan again. The real fatal thing was that the backlash of using this secret technique would cause irreparable damage to his soul. It would directly affect the speed of his cultivation in the future. He might not even be able to break through to the human immortal stage. This was the real reason why he was helpless. If he could not break through to the human immortal stage, how many more years could he live? However, Chen Hao's strength had forced him to this step. He could only watch as the people around him fell one by one. Although they were already seriously injured, they were still fighting bravely. He knew that he could not rely on luck anymore. Otherwise, he would face the end of his life. Soul Fighter was in the air, laughing maniacally as he walked step by step towards Chen Hao. With every step he took, the surrounding space began to explode. He stared coldly at Chen Hao. "Pa, are you afraid? I am now infinitely close to the human immortal stage." Human immortal stage. Even an ordinary human immortal stage is useless in front of me. Pa, do you want to admit defeat? It's useless to admit defeat. No one can stop me from killing you. Pa, don't worry, I will let you watch your beloved women die in my hands. Not only will I kill them, but I will also strip them and let hundreds of thousands of people here enjoy their naked bodies. Pa, it's a pity that there are too many people here. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind putting on a show in front of you. Shut up. Boom. Soul Fighter's increasingly vicious and shameless words made Chen Hao stop hesitating. In everyone's opinion, Chen Hao's silence was because he was afraid. Even Soul Fighter thought so. But what was the truth? Chen Hao was just hesitating whether to expose his real strength. Once exposed, the following battle with the limitless Demon Palace and the Demon Palace would not be able to achieve the expected results. This was also the reason why he, Chen Shui, Helian Wuxi, and Xia Yuyu did not use the middle-grade spiritual treasure set. They would rather be seriously injured. But at this moment, Chen Hao had no choice but to expose himself. Soul Fighter was able to use such a powerful and abnormal secret method, which was completely beyond his expectations and control. With Chen Hao's thunderous roar, a bright 7-colored light rose from his body. His 7-colored boots spurted out 2 shockwaves that were thousands of feet long. His whole body rushed like a cannonball towards Soul Fighter, who was enjoying the pleasure of hunting. Chen Shui, Helian Wuxi, and Xia Yu's bodies simultaneously emitted resplendent rays of light, but they didn't advance. Instead, they retreated at top speed until they reached the edge of the intersection of the 3 realms' heavenly rivers. Only then did they stop with nervous expressions. They knew that the battle between Chen Hao and Soul Fighter at this moment was far beyond what they could bear. They could not help at all. Spiritual treasure set? So, this is your trump card? Pa, Soul Fighter said disdainfully. He was still laughing wildly. But in his heart, he secretly rejoiced that he was wise and powerful. If he had not decisively used the secret method, he was afraid that he would have really died. But now, with his strength comparable to the human celestial stage, the middle-grade spiritual treasure set was nothing. In the face of absolute power, Any spiritual treasure was just a worldly object, which could not withstand a single blow. Get out of here! Boom! Soul Fighter violently slapped out his palm. He did not even use his sword. Since he had said so, how could he let Xianxia die first? This secret method lasted for 15 minutes. In his opinion, it was enough time for him to humiliate Xianxia to the extreme before he died. Only in this way could he vent the boundless hatred in his heart. 1,000 changes Xian force, condense. Boom. Xianxia, who was rushing towards Soul Fighter like a cannonball, saw the big hand that Soul Fighter had sent out. In an instant, his whole body surged with a mysterious aura. The energy within thousands of feet suddenly showed a scene of a group of demons dancing wildly, with Xianxia as the core, including Soul Fighter. Field? Thousands of feet of field? Hundreds of thousands of onlookers saw the scene that suddenly appeared in the void. With Xianxia as the core, it seemed to be an independent space from heaven and earth. Their eyes widened in horror. If that was not a field, then what was it? Domain was a powerful innate ability, and it was something that all cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Field had nothing to do with one's realm. Although the higher the realm, the higher the probability of activating the field talent, and the more cultivators who could control the field. But the premise was that one had to have the field talent. Just like Fujikawa, who Xianxia and Xianxia met in the ancient Dark Wind Cave. Fujikawa was the only cultivator Xianxia had met who could control the field talent. Break for me! Rumble! Soul Fighter sensed that his power was pulled away by a mysterious aura and deviated from Xianxia's body. He frowned slightly. In an instant, he determined that Xianxia, this abnormal guy, had mastered the field talent. However, he was only slightly surprised. Although he knew that his power had deviated from Xianxia's, he did not stop. Instead, he suddenly urged his palm to become even more violent. The terrible explosion passed through thousands of meters and tore the endless void. It was not until the black hole-like crack swallowed all the energy that it disappeared. However, at this moment, whether it was Soul Fighter or the onlookers, they were all surprised and puzzled. How is this possible? It obviously penetrated the field talent. How can it still exist? Soul Fighter felt that his body was a little out of control. If his strength was not close to the human immortal stage at this moment, he was afraid that he would have lost control. This was absolutely impossible. After all, once the field talent was broken by absolute power, it would explode and cease to exist. And the cultivator who was mentally connected to the field talent would be seriously injured. But at this moment, Xianxia's field talent had obviously been broken by Soul Fighter's violent palm, but the power of the field talent still existed. Moreover, Xianxia, who was flying rapidly, was not affected at all. How was this possible? The hundreds of thousands of onlookers did not feel Soul Fighter's body, but they could see that the independent field talent still existed and was not destroyed by Soul Fighter's penetrating energy. It was a long story, but in fact, it was just a flash of lightning. Die for me! Seeing Xianxia's terrifying sword attack, Soul Fighter knew that it was absolutely impossible to trample on Xianxia and the other two. Chi 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 chi! In an instant, countless terrifying beams of sword light flew towards Xianxia. Even though he was restricted by Xianxia's Xian field, the feeling of power brought about by the forceful increase in his cultivation level did not cause his confidence to swell. Furthermore, in this short moment, he had already sensed the direction of the Xian field. Therefore, he was absolutely confident that he could kill Xianxia with his sword. But, idiot, I want to see who's going to die. Xianxia's cold and arrogant voice caused Wuxian's mind to be greatly alarmed. The dozens of sword lights that he had shot out originally contained the power to resist Xianxia's profound energy field, but the moment they were about to reach him, that mysterious power suddenly reversed, causing all the sword lights that he had shot out to deviate at an even faster speed in the opposite direction from where they were originally supposed to be. The power he had sent out to resist Xianxia's field talent had instead become the power to change the direction of his attack. Chapter 461. When Xianxia was only 1,000 feet away from Soul Fighter, he suddenly twisted his body and stabbed forward with his sword. The 7-colored sword light was condensed to the extreme, containing all kinds of mysterious auras and destructive sword intent. Boom! Soul Fighter, who was in shock, waved his sword the moment the sword reached him. The absolute power of the human immortal realm shattered Xianxia's attack without any suspense. However, even though he looked relaxed, he was actually drenched in cold sweat. That was because he had launched a large-scale attack at close range. If not for that, the direction of the energy he had launched would definitely have been changed by the strange and ever-changing force field. At this time, Soul Fighter was finally a little worried. 15 minutes, I only have 15 minutes. No matter what, I have to kill this boy and the 3 girls in a few minutes. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. I have to get close. Soul Fighter suddenly rushed towards Xianxia with his sword. He did not even launch an attack. He knew very well that an attack from 1,000 feet away would be a waste of energy. Only in close combat could he reduce the effect of Xianxia's mysterious force field to the minimum. Although that also meant the most dangerous. Did he have a way out at this moment? Ha! Are you afraid? At this moment, Xianxia let out a wild laugh. When they saw Soul Fighter's figure rushing towards them, everyone thought that Xianxia would rush towards him. After all, Xianxia had not been afraid of death and looked like he was going to fight Soul Fighter to the death. But at this moment, not only did Xianxia not approach Soul Fighter, he actually moved away from him. Don't think that I don't know what kind of evil skill you're using. It's nothing more than an evil side branch of the great devouring skill of the 3,000 great ways. How long can you last? 15 minutes at most? The evil you bring upon yourself is the hardest to bear. Who will suffer a fate worse than death? We'll know the result soon. What? How do you know? Soul Fighter's body flew quickly, twisting and turning. Although he was still chasing Xianxia, he was more or less like a headless fly. Just this alone was enough to make him incomparably terrified. No matter what, he had never imagined that Xianxia's force field would be so profound. It was ever-changing and had no pattern to speak of. If it wasn't for the fact that his absolute strength was much stronger than Xianxia's, he would probably have become a toy for Xianxia to play with. Xianxia could toss him around and play with him however he wanted. But now, Xianxia had actually pointed out the origin of his secret technique. This was something he had obtained by chance when he was at the late-stage primordial spirit realm, during a training trip arranged by the limitless demon palace on an extraterrestrial desolate star. He had obtained one of the most powerful ultimate techniques of the 3,000 Great Tao, the Great Devouring Technique. It was also because of the orthodox practice of the Great Devouring skill that he was able to improve much faster than Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu and reach the blessed realm in advance. However, it was a pity that he was only able to learn a little bit of the Great Devouring Technique that he had been practicing. Today, he was forced to use the Great Devouring Technique by burning his lifespan as he was forced to do so. As for how severe the consequences were, there were detailed records in the Cultivation technique. But he still activated it. The biggest drawback was that there was a time limit. However, at this moment, Xianxia had actually pointed it out. Are you surprised? I also know that after 15 minutes, you will be like a half-dead dog. Not only will your soul be severely injured, but all your true essence will also dissipate. To put it bluntly, although you won't lose your life, you will be a good-for-nothing. The genius you once were is no longer a genius. I really want to see what kind of torture a heartless scum like you, who treats his own people so cruelly and mercilessly, will receive after you become a good-for-nothing. It must be very exciting, right? Xianxia, whose body was shining with a 7-colored light, maintained a constant distance from Soul Fighter like a bolt of lightning. On his handsome face, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, filled with an evil charm and arrogance. It's a pity that they won't have the chance. Because I will personally cut off your dog head. Your primordial spirit will be destroyed. Impossible. Impossible, so what if it's 15 minutes? I am now a human immortal. Human immortal, die, I want you to die. Soul Fighter went completely crazy. Xianxia's words were like a magic spell that shook people's hearts. Not only did he expose the secret technique that Soul Fighter had used, he also clearly stated the consequences of the secret technique. Geniuses were no longer geniuses. What would happen to a person like him, who had the heart of a wolf and lungs of a dog, who didn't have the slightest bit of humanity. Just from the fact that he had devoured 7 of his companions, who were at the peak of the late stage of manifestation stage, one could imagine the consequences. These 7 people were also geniuses. They were also outstanding figures in the various halls of Limitless Demon Palace. Not to mention that there were senior brothers and sisters among the 40 disciples of Limitless Demon Palace. Even if there weren't, after today, Soul Fighter's fate would be very miserable. This was all because Qin Hao had exposed his secret. If the crowd didn't know, they would be shocked by his powerful talent and abnormal secret technique. Perhaps they would continue to curry favor with him. But now that they knew, it was impossible. Boom, boom, boom. Soul Fighter attacked Qin Hao continuously without caring about the cost. Unfortunately, the more agitated he was, the faster his energy was consumed. Qin Hao calmly maintained his distance and dodged his attacks. If Soul Fighter hadn't lost his mind, he would have definitely stopped. But now, he was like a resentful woman who had been molested by Qin Hao. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Qin Hao as fast as he could. Kill him. The expressions of the cultivators in the devil world and demon world changed. Especially some ambitious sect leaders. What did this scene mean? It meant that Soul Fighter was going to lose. The devil world and demon world were going to lose. It meant that the territory of 20 million li would become the territory of the immortal Tao. The Fortune Gate, Sky Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect's sect leaders who had colluded with the devil world were even more embarrassed. Their bodies began to tremble, and they were almost scared to death. Even in their dreams, they didn't expect Qin Hao and the others to be so powerful. With just 5 people, they were able to turn the tide. What kind of concept was this? Once the devil world lost this battle, according to the agreement, all the people who had betrayed the 3 sects would become the captives of the immortal Tao. How bad would the consequences be? At this time, the half-step human immortal Noda Xiaqing suddenly snorted coldly. Without any warning, he soared into the sky. Monstrous demonic chi surged towards Qin Hao. Seeing that Soul Fighter was struggling like a headless fly, the devil world and demon world had already realized the outcome. Everyone in the devil world looked at the old monster Noda Xiaqing. Countless people even sent out messages of inquiry. Because they couldn't afford to lose. Yes, at this moment, not only had they lost all their face, they couldn't accept the loss of 20 million li of territory. One had to know that 20 million li of territory was moving along the 3 realms galaxy into their territory. How many square kilometers was that? How many sects were involved in it? How many resources would disappear? Since they had already lost all their face, they might as well shed all pretense of cordiality and shamelessly start a war between the immortal Tao, demon Tao, and demon Tao. This would mean that the eastern continent would be reshuffled and realigned. However, everyone was most afraid of Qin Hao. Once the war broke out, they had to kill Qin Hao first. Otherwise, with such a freak, who could stop him even if he barged into the devil world and demon world? Who could kill him? No one. That would be everyone's nightmare. Especially since Qin Hao was still very young. He was only in the early stage of the manifestation realm. His cultivation would improve in a short period of time. Because of this, everyone looked at Noda Xiaqing. Because only he had the ability to kill Qin Hao. As long as Qin Hao was killed, although the others were still a big threat, they wouldn't be afraid. After some time, they would definitely be able to kill all the experts of the immortal Tao and completely erase the immortal Tao from the eastern continent. Clang, clang, clang. Boom, boom, boom. As Noda Xiaqing stood up, the demon Tao cultivators unsheathed their swords. Their auras surged out violently. However, before they received the order to attack, they could only hold back. Old man, you dare to go against the contract? Qin Hao's cold voice rang out. The thing he was most worried about had happened. Originally, the probability of it happening was very small. Because he was confident that he could use his own strength to deter the experts of the demon Tao and demon Tao. However, Noda Xiaqing's unexpected appearance had increased the probability of a war breaking out countless times. Contract? The old man has stepped into the half-step human immortal realm. He has already surpassed the boundaries of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. What does your contract have to do with the old man? If you dare to disrespect the old man will take your dog life. Notice Xianxia took a step forward. His demonic aura filled the sky as he stared at Chen Hao from afar. Boom boom boom. Clang clang clang. Xia Lingfeng and the rest of the immortal Dao cultivators were shocked at this moment. They rushed up to the sky. The situation had turned into a state of mutual hostility. There was no doubt that once Noda Xianxia made his move, the immortal demon war would break out. Back off. At this moment, Chen Hao turned around and shouted at Xia Lingfeng and the rest. Then he looked coldly at Noda Xianxia and said, "Old dog, your reason is very stupid. Don't you want to kill me and trigger the immortal demon war?" Pa, whoosh, bang. The moment Chen Hao spoke, the rainbow battle boots suddenly spat out two terrifying shockwaves. His figure once again shot out like a cannonball, not giving anyone any time to react. He rushed towards Mo Wuxin, who was already completely under the control of the profound energy field. Stretching out his hand, he viciously grabbed Mo Wuxin's throat. "I'll fulfill your wish. You'll become a dead dog like him." Boom boom boom. Mo Wuxin's eyes bulged, and he struggled madly. The remaining energy exploded around Chen Hao. Even though it was still terrifying to most of the fighters at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm, Chen Hao, who shone with a seven-colored light, looked like a god. He was not affected at all. This little bit of energy could not even break through his spiritual treasure set. Bang! His left hand grabbed Mo Wuxin's throat as if he was holding a chicken. His right hand punched out, and Mo Wuxin's arm and shoulder turned into a pile of flesh and blood. Chapter 462. Bang, 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 bang. After 3 consecutive sounds, Soul Fighter's arms and legs disappeared. He became a meatball with only his head and chest left. Under the terrifying pain, Soul Fighter wanted to scream, but his veins were bulging on his face and his eyeballs were about to pop out. Yet he couldn't make a sound. Under the effect of Chen Hao's mysterious energy, this pain wasn't as simple as a broken arm or a broken leg. This was a pain that shook his soul. It was the most realistic portrayal of being unable to live and unable to die. This bloody and cruel scene was 100 or 1,000 times more horrible than Chen Hao smashing Soul Fighter into pieces with one punch. Everyone present could see that Soul Fighter's primordial spirit was forced to his head by Chen Hao. This was the cruelest torture. But it wasn't over yet. Chen Hao used his right hand to cut Soul Fighter's upper body like a sharp blade. Pieces of flesh flew out from Soul Fighter's body. What was cutting him into pieces? This was it. Condense. Rumble. When Soul Fighter's head was left hanging in the air by Chen Hao's bone-chilling voice rang out. Immediately, Soul Fighter's primordial spirit appeared in front of everyone. It seemed to be struggling and howling, but it couldn't make any sound. It turned into a wisp of green smoke and was held in Chen Hao's hand. "Old dog, didn't you want to kill me? I'll give you a chance." Swish. Chen Hao waved his hand and sent out a ray of energy. The 1,000 transformation Xian force field disappeared instantly. After a fierce battle with an opponent at the human celestial stage, his aura didn't weaken at all. Instead, it became more powerful. Even though it was broad daylight, his pitch-black eyes were still dazzling like stars. They were fierce and domineering, and his peerlessly handsome and angular face was terrifyingly cold. Plus, he had killed Soul Fighter in a bloody and cruel way. At this moment, everyone was scared out of their wits. Hundreds of thousands of people were silent. Even evil spirit Noda's face became extremely embarrassed. No one had thought that Chen Hao was actually powerful to such an extent. Noda Xianxia had wanted to take advantage of the battle between Chen Hao and Soul Fighter to make his move. That way, he would have a high chance of killing Chen Hao. As long as Chen Hao died, even if the great war between immortals and demons broke out, it wouldn't be a threat to most of the experts. So what if they lost some people? As long as his foundation remained intact, he would be able to recover his vitality in a few years. Furthermore, after obtaining the territory and resources of the immortal path, his speed of development would be even faster. With luck, his chances of overcoming the half-immortal heaven punishment would increase exponentially. because he was the mastermind. But he didn't expect that just as he was about to make a move, Chen Hao would kill the struggling soul fighter without any hesitation. It would have been fine if he had just killed him, but he had displayed such insufferably powerful strength. One had to know that although Soul Fighter was in a frenzy and had used up a lot of his energy, how much energy could he have used to struggle? At the very least, Noda Xie was sure that he couldn't have done it as easily as Chen Hao. Of course, in his opinion, Chen Hao must have made use of that powerful spiritual treasure set. But who dared to say that possessing a spiritual treasure wasn't a form of strength? Why are you afraid? Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Don't think that the immortal path is easy to bully. When Chen Hao said this, he suddenly disappeared. Even his aura disappeared completely, leaving no trace behind. However, when his voice resounded in everyone's ears again in an instant, he was already above the army of several 100,000 people from the demon world. So what if you have hundreds of thousands of people? In my eyes, you're all ants. Swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, just as everyone's hair stood on end, 3 rainbow-colored hands suddenly tore through the void. Ah ah ah, 3 terrified cries erupted from the mouths of the Yuan Gate, Sky Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect. These 3 fellows had long been frightened out of their wits. Like dead dogs, they were imprisoned in Chen Hao's hands. Hundreds of thousands of demons, but no one dared to stop him. No one could stop him. Oda Xie expression changed greatly. He was terrified and ashamed to the extreme. Such a monster, he actually wanted to kill him. Was that even possible? The moment Chen Hao disappeared, with his cultivation, he couldn't even sense a trace of his aura. So what if his combat power was stronger than Chen Hao's? Not to mention that Chen Hao's targets were 3 immortal Dao experts who had colluded with the demon sect. Even if Chen Hao launched a sneak attack on him, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. Coming without a shadow, leaving without a trace, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. His combat power was monstrous. What shocked everyone even more was that an extremely powerful spiritual perception appeared in everyone's hearts at the same time. Everyone felt that under this spiritual perception, they had become completely naked. There were no more secrets to speak of. Even if hundreds of millions of lives in the immortal Dao die, I can still make all of you suffer a fate worse than death. Want to violate the contract? I'd like to see who dares to do so. Let me go, let me go. I promise to be loyal to the immortal Dao from now on. I won't betray it again. I don't want to die. Chen Hao, I'll be your slave. I'm willing to fully support the star-picking sect to become the #1 immortal Dao sect. Please let me go. I was wrong, I was wrong. Please let me go. Under the terrifying pressure of Chen Hao's 3 enormous hands, the Origin Sect, Sky Sword Sect, and Floating Mist Sect cultivators begged for mercy in agony. 3 streams of energy shot out from Chen Hao's hands and merged into the 3 enormous hands in an instant. Incomparably shrill screams erupted from their mouths. I beg you, let me die. Give me a quick death. Even if my body and soul are destroyed. I beg you. Just hearing those extremely painful screams sent chills down everyone's spine and made them break out in cold sweat. What kind of pain did these great figures, who had once stood at the pinnacle of the immortal Dao in the Eastern continent, have to go through for them to utter such words in front of everyone? It was obvious that the pain they were enduring was far beyond anyone's imagination. This was exactly what Chen Hao had said. They would rather die than live. Don't worry, the heavens are benevolent. I won't kill you. At most, I'll destroy your stinky skins. With your cultivation, you should be able to last for 100 years. I'm a very compassionate person. If you can't hold on, I'll treat your soul injuries regularly. Rumble. As Chen Hao's chilling voice rang out, the 3 cultivators' bodies instantly exploded into a bloody mist. Their primordial spirits struggled with all their might to transform into 3 wisps of green smoke that were sucked into Chen Hao's palms. They followed in Soul Fighter's footsteps. Nearly 40,000 people from the Immortal Dao sect stared at Chen Hao, who single-handedly charged into the enemy's ranks and captured the 3 culprits who had colluded with the demon world. No one dared to stop him. They clenched their fists tightly, their blood boiling with excitement. As for the hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the Demon Dao and Yao Dao sect, they felt an eerie chill and incomparable fear. Who could stop such a person? We'll record the names of the others from the Origin Gate, Heavenly Sword sect, and Floating Mist sect. When the time comes, we'll hand them over together. As Chen Hao spoke, his cold and arrogant gaze landed on the 40 limitless Demon Palace disciples, who had long since turned pale with fright. This was especially true for the disciples from Broken Heart Hall who had followed Soul Fighter to hunt down Chen Hao and the others. They were so scared that they almost pissed their pants. As for the Creation Realm experts from the Origin Gate, Heavenly Sword sect, and Floating Mist sect, they were all trembling violently. Howls of despair suddenly erupted. Boom, boom, boom. There were actually quite a few people who self-destructed their primordial spirits at the same time, their souls scattering. Once the contract took effect, none of them would be able to escape. The demon world, the immortal world, and the Yao world, there would be no place for them to stand. When they thought of the fates of the three great sect masters, these brave warriors chose to self-destruct without any hesitation. Senior, we were forced to do this. We had no choice. Our lives are in the hands of the sect master. Otherwise, why would we do such a thing? We had no choice. We really had no choice. There were also some Creation Realm experts present who spoke loudly to the godlike Chen Hao in fear. Whether you were forced or not, Sect Master Xia and the others will come to the conclusion. Now, the wagered battle of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world is over. Disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace, it's your turn now. Chen Hao said coldly. As he spoke, his cold gaze landed on the 40 Limitless Demon Palace disciples. Qi Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, the injured Tantai Lian, as well as Jiang Hai, Huang Wenshu, and the other 40 Limitless Immortal Palace disciples. At this moment, without any hesitation, each and every one of them flew towards the center of the three realms Milky Way. We, the Demon Dao, admit defeat. We are willing to compensate. The 40 Limitless Demon Palace disciples were already scared out of their wits. How could they still dare to fight? When the contract was signed, it was said that all the disciples of the three great palaces would fight. Originally, they did not know that Chen Hao, this monster, would come. They also did not expect that Chen Shui and the other three would still be able to fight after the wagered battle. How could they fight now? Not to mention Chen Shui and the other three, even if Chen Hao participated, they would not have any chance of winning. They would just be courting death. The only fortunate thing was that they did not sign a life and death battle. If they lost, they would only have to agree to one condition, which was to hand over a few disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace's Broken Heart Hall and compensate. This had nothing to do with them. How could they fight? There is no need for compensation. I don't care about your little wealth. Boom, boom, boom. When Chen Hao looked at the Limitless Demon Palace disciples, dozens of people attacked at the same time before he could say anything. In an instant, they took down the few disciples beside him. Chen Hao, the turmoil in the Eastern Continent was completely caused by Soul Fighter of the Broken Heart Hall and these people. We admit defeat for this battle. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. You can settle the score with them. We guarantee that the demon world will immediately fulfill the contract of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. Within 3 days, the handover will be completed. We will cooperate with the Immortal Dao to complete the reconstruction of the three realms boundary and restore the Eastern Continent to its normal state. The leader of the 40 people stared at Chen Hao as he spoke. Although his voice was crisp and clear, his trembling hands revealed the nervousness in his heart at this moment. Chapter 463. These are the people you want. Send them over. Seeing that Chen Hao still did not say anything, the disciple became even more nervous. His voice trembled as he spoke. His heart was filled with regret. He had been bewitched by Soul Fighter and wanted to make a great contribution to the Limitless Demon Palace in the Eastern Continent. Now, not only did he not make a great contribution, his life was in danger. Chi. When more than 10 disciples brought the Broken Heart Palace's disciples to Chen Hao, Chen Hao did not draw his sword. Instead, he waved his hand and sent out a few sharp sword lights, which directly pierced their hearts. Following their screams, their primordial spirits were taken into Chen Hao's hands. From the beginning to the end, Chen Hao's expression did not change at all. It was as if he was doing something insignificant. He was cold, ruthless, and overbearing. Central Continent, as long as you come at me, I welcome you to challenge me. However, if you use despicable means like Soul Fighter, don't blame me for being merciless. You should be glad that I came back in time. Otherwise, the result would not be so simple. Chen Hao said coldly. Then, he looked at Xia Lingfeng and said, Clan Master Xia, I'll leave the rest to you. Under Chen Hao's aura, Xia Lingfeng actually cupped his fists and replied respectfully, as if he was a subordinate. However, at this moment, whether it was Xia Lingfeng or the 40,000 people in the immortal path, no one felt that Xia Lingfeng's action was inappropriate. Who could turn the tide with the strength of a single person? Who could kill a half-step human immortal as if he was killing a chicken when he was only at the initial stage of the manifestation realm? One man and one sword, in front of hundreds of thousands of manifestation realm experts, trampled 3 people who were once at the peak of the immortal path. Who could do it? Who could frighten the old farts who had not appeared for hundreds of years to the point that they did not even dare to fart? No one. However, Chen Hao did it. With absolute strength, absolute arrogance, and absolute coldness, he did it. One man deterred the 3 worlds of the Eastern Continent. And he was just a young man in his 20s. Chen Hao led the 4 women and 40 disciples of the limitless immortal palace and flew into the sky. Boss, you're amazing. Too powerful. Brother Chen, I didn't expect you to be so strong. It's unbelievable. Even in the Central Continent, no one can compare. Thankfully, Brother Chen returned in time. Otherwise, the immortal Tao would have suffered. That's right. Although the junior sisters are very strong, they can't change the outcome. Pooh. Just as everyone was tens of thousands of li away, and when they were certain that no one would be able to sense them, all of them started to greet Chen Hao excitedly. Chen Hao's expression seemed calm, and his aura didn't weaken in the slightest. However, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao spurted out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale, and he staggered, almost falling from the sky. Qin Shui, who was beside him, grabbed him. What happened to you? Hao? The 3 girls also looked at Chen Hao in astonishment. At this moment, Helian Wuzi and Xia Yu were holding on to the injured Tantilian. Little Shui, support me. Before the 3 realms return to normal, don't let anyone know that I'm heavily injured. Almost in the blink of an eye, Chen Hao spurted out a mouthful of essence blood. His life aura had actually weakened to a frightening extent, and his face was frighteningly pale. Hao? Chen Hao, boss, don't scare us. The 4 girls, Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the others' expressions changed greatly. No one had expected that Chen Hao, who seemed completely fine just a moment ago, would suddenly become so weak. Moreover, they could sense that Chen Hao's life aura was extremely weak. Support me. Don't reveal any flaws. Return to the star-picking sect first. After we return, announce that I've comprehended something and need to go into seclusion immediately. Chen Hao's mouth was full of blood, and his voice was incomparably weak as he spoke intermittently. After he finished speaking, his pitch-black eyes were clearly open, but they had lost focus. Everyone's eyes widened in shock, and they were incomparably nervous. How could this be? How could this be? He was clearly fine. Could it be that boss? He used a secret technique? Huang Wenxiu looked at Chen Shui and the others and said, "This?" Chen Shui, who was holding on to Chen Hao, did not speak. She directly poured her energy into Chen Hao's body and controlled his body. What made Chen Shui's heart stab with pain was that Chen Hao's body did not have the slightest bit of energy. His internal organs and even every cell were dried up like a thirsty desert, and only a wisp of life force remained. He must have used a secret technique. No wonder he was so strong. No wonder he was so strong. Almost in an instant, Chen Shui's eyes were filled with tears. She suddenly looked at the 3 anxious girls and said, "Little Wu, let's hold on to him. This news, must not be leaked in the slightest bit. Wait for the three realms barrier to reconstruct and the teleportation array to be restored, and we will immediately return to the central continent. Mother and the others will definitely have a way. Junior sister Qin, what's the situation? Is it very serious? The dozens of disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace present were basically the disciples of Yunwei Palace. The strength that Qianhao had shown had completely conquered them. In addition, Senior Immortal Yunwei respected and valued Qianhao. At this moment, when she saw Qianhao suddenly become like this, she was sincerely concerned from the bottom of her heart. Senior Immortal Yunwei and my mother must have a way. Definite. Don't panic, stay calm. If the people of the demon realm and the demon realm know that he's in such a situation, he's really finished. Chen Shui suppressed the fear in her heart and said, Helian Wuzi let go of Tantai Lian and quickly came to Qianhao's side. The two of them held onto Qianhao and poured energy into Qianhao to maintain his body. They also emitted a fierce aura. Although it was not as strong as Qianhao's own, it did not seem too abnormal. Qianhao was only at the early stage of the creation realm. With the help of the spiritual treasure set, he could at most compete with ordinary half-step human immortals. However, it was not so easy to win. It was just easier to save his life. Mo Wuxin had burned his lifespan and performed the evil path's great devouring skill. He had absorbed the energy of 7 experts at the peak of the late stage of the Fate realm and condensed it into his own body. His strength was infinitely close to the human celestial stage. Coupled with Mo Wuxin's extremely powerful talent, how could Qianhao have won so easily? No one knew what Qianhao, who seemed calm, arrogant, and insufferably arrogant, did at that time. He burned his lifespan. Soul Fighter burned 800 years of his lifespan, and Qianhao was forced to do the same thing. It was the same great devouring skill, and the same evil shortcut that Soul Fighter used. The only difference was that he devoured the energy of the spiritual spring and countless spiritual herbs through the old god. Not only that, Qianhao also used the old god's mental strength to deter the enemy for the first time. When he barged into the army of hundreds of thousands of people by himself, just by relying on his soul power, it was impossible for him to release such a huge pressure. Otherwise, if that old dog Oda Xiaqing sensed anything strange, he would probably be killed on the spot. Moreover, the reason why he was so cold-blooded and cruel was to deter Noda Xiaqing and everyone from both the Demon Dao and the Demon Dao. Once Noda Xiaqing saw any clues, the result could be imagined. How long could he last after burning 800 years of his lifespan, no matter how strong his talent and physical strength were? He could not last much longer than Soul Fighter. The pain that he had endured until now was unimaginable. He was almost at the end of his life. Even though he knew that his soul would be irreparably damaged, he still insisted on doing so. There was no other way. Only by doing so could Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian be safe. His younger brother, sister, brothers, and friends would be safe. Only then would the entire immortal Dao of the Eastern continent be safe. If he hadn't done that, he could have escaped. Moreover, he could have used his own strength to wreak havoc in the Eastern continent's demon realm and demon realm. He could have killed everyone involved in this incident. Could he save the lives of his family and friends? That was an outcome that Qianhao did not want to see. Old God, you should stop Qianhao. In Qianhao's mind, the treasure-hunting sword spirit sensed Qianhao's aura and said unhappily to the old God, Stop? Why don't you stop him? Who can stop this kid from doing what he wants? I don't believe you can't stop him. Don't think I don't know that your current ability is not as simple as what you told Qianhao. So what? If it was the previous masters, I would have stopped him. I would not have allowed his soul to suffer irreparable damage, but this time, I will not stop him. Because the previous masters seemed perfect, but none of them were able to reach the end. I told you before that human emotions are the most powerful, mysterious power. Although the damage to the soul will cause it to become incomplete, his emotions will remain perfect. I can't tell if it's a blessing or a curse. From the beginning until now, the path he walked was chosen by himself. I decided not to interfere before, and I will not interfere now, and I will not interfere in the future. Moreover, it's not like there's no way to repair it. Although it's impossible to completely recover, at least the damage can be reduced to negligible levels. Damn. You said so much, you should have said so earlier. What method? Hearing the old god's last sentence, the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not help but curse at the powerful old god. In fact, after interacting with the old god, the treasure-hunting sword spirit realized that the old god was not as terrifying as it had imagined. At least, the treasure-hunting sword spirit was sure that the old god treated it well, and it was no longer as fearful as before. Even an idiot can think of the simplest and most direct method. Do you still need me to tell you? Cough cough. There are many ways to repair the damage to the soul. Alright. Anyway, it's none of our business. Even if it can't be repaired with his power of comprehension and physical body, he'll be able to break through to the human celestial stage very soon. As his cultivation level increases, the damage to his soul will slowly recover. The so-called irreparable damage is only limited to a certain cultivation level. As long as he can continue to increase his cultivation level, there's nothing to worry about. Chapter 464. It was the same burning of lifespan and the same damage to the soul. But to Soul Fighter Mo, he was basically useless. Chen Hao, on the other hand, was different. His soul was originally a mutated fused soul. It was several times stronger than a cultivator of the same level. Even if it was damaged, it was still a dead camel. It was stronger than Soul Fighter Mo in his peak state. 4 hours later, Chen Hao and the others returned to the Xiaxing sect through the transportation array between the cities. The Xiaxing sect of today, under the auspices of Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian and many other rising geniuses, had undergone earth-shattering changes compared to a few years ago. It was shrouded in auspicious light and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant. Although it was still far from the central mainland, it was already a top-level holy land for cultivation in the eastern mainland. In addition, Chen Hao's grandfather, Lin Kongya, had transferred a large amount of primordial crystal stones to the Xiaxing sect through the Chamber of Commerce. The Xiaxing sect had truly stepped into the ranks of powerful sections. The only thing they lacked was a little bit of foundation. Unfortunately, Chen Hao, who was deep in self-recovery, could not see it. However, at this moment, the entire Xiaxing sect was deserted. There was not even a single disciple guarding the door. In the entire Xiaxing sect, there were only 6 grand elders and more than 100 disciples who were close to Chen Hao, anxiously waiting for news. When Helian Wuzi used the sect's command medallion to activate the star-seizing sect's defensive formation, which was countless times stronger than before, the 6 grand elders immediately soared into the sky from the star-seizing peak, appearing before everyone as fast as lightning. Chen Hao, you're back? We've won, haven't we? The Grand Elder, who had once condensed his own grotto heaven for Chen Hao to enter to cultivate, asked nervously and excitedly when he saw Chen Hao, the 4 girls, and the 40 disciples of Wuji Immortal Palace. They were all clear about the situation of the bet. If they had not won, Chen Hao and the 4 girls would not have had a chance to return. However, what surprised them was that there did not seem to be any joy of victory on everyone's faces. Although they all looked calm, they could tell that everyone's expressions were forced. Seniors, we've won. During the battle, Chen Shui hesitated for a moment. Yet she didn't speak the truth in the end and said, he has comprehended something and has already immersed himself in a special state of cultivation. We have to send him back to the palace first. Ah? Good, we won. It's good that we won. Grand Elder, I'll have to trouble you to arrange a place for my senior brothers and sisters to rest for the time being. Sect Master and the others should be back in less than 3 days. Helian Wuzi said. Also, if Xiaomo and Chen Hao's younger brother and sister ask, tell them not to disturb Chen Hao for the time being. He needs some time, no problem. They're all at star-picking peak. Just don't tell them for now. The 6 grand elders faintly felt a bit strange, but since Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi said so, it wasn't good for them to ask anymore. After all, they were very familiar with Chen Hao's aura, at least in the past. But now, although Chen Hao's spirit seemed to be full, there was a faint feeling of incompatibility. Especially at a close distance, The 6 of them could feel that it seemed to be related to Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu also wanted to follow, but they still restrained themselves. They couldn't help even if they went over. Instead, they were like light bulbs, adding to the awkwardness. How is it? In Chen Hao's palace, when Chen Shui slowly withdrew her palms from Chen Hao's body, the 3 girls looked nervously at Chen Shui, who was dripping with fragrant sweat, and asked. Chen Shui shook her head with a grave expression and said, I can't sense any signs of recovery. He seems to have entered a deep sleep. In this situation, his soul must have suffered a serious injury, and he's once again immersed in this subconscious self-recovery state. We don't have to worry too much. His life force is no longer weakening, and seems to have stabilized. Then what should we do? Don't tell me we're just going to watch? Xia Yuyu frowned and said, Naturally we can't watch. Why don't you try? Yuyu, didn't you have that kind of dual cultivation energy with him in the ruins? And little Lien, your phoenix inheritance with him. If you can fuse with his soul, it should be able to help him recover the injury on his soul. That kind of true dual cultivation is useful. When yin and yang converge, it's easiest to achieve soul fusion. Chen Shui braced herself and said a little embarrassedly. She was very clear on this point. The reason why her soul was so strong was because of the yin and yang fusion. Only, the difference was that her mother had forcefully used more than 100 years to condense the purest yang essence in the world for her, and not through dual cultivation. Seeing Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lian's slightly red faces and not speaking, Chen Shui could only say again, My intention is not for you to do that with him. After all, you and him should have had soul fusion before. Your soul and his soul, in a certain sense, already have a certain degree of compatibility. Right now, little Wu is displaying the cultivation technique that you guys had comprehended together. Maybe it can cause a trace of fluctuation. As long as he realizes it, it should be a little useful, right? Little Lien's Phoenix Nirvana should have a better effect. After all, you guys, let me do it, but you guys can't just watch. The more Chen Shui said, the more embarrassed she felt. Just as she was too embarrassed to continue, Tantai Lien said with a red face. Among the 4 of them, 3 were still virgins. Only Tantai Lien and Chen Hao had done it once. But after a few years, and under the circumstances that they had no choice, Tantai Lien's situation was not much better than the 3 of them. But under such circumstances, what was the point of continuing to be shy? Let me try first. Just at this moment, Helian Wuzi suddenly said, Who? Chen Shui and the other 2 looked at Helian Wuzi in astonishment. I didn't mean that. My soul has awakened the power of reincarnation. Master had once told me that the power of reincarnation is the most mysterious energy in the world. The more I awaken, the stronger my soul will be. The greatest use of the power of reincarnation is to nourish and strengthen the soul. I want to try and see if it's useful to him. Helian Wuzi's words immediately received unanimous agreement from the 3 of them. After all, although Tantai Lien had mustered up her courage, the awkwardness in her heart was undoubtedly quite serious. Especially when the 3 of them were aware of it. Although Chen Shui and Xia Yuyu were very supportive of Tantai Lien taking the initiative to appear, they more or less felt a little awkward in their hearts. This feeling was very subtle. It was like a snack shared by the 4 of them. No one was embarrassed to take the first bite, but if someone took the first bite, the others would also be unhappy. Hiss hiss hiss. Helian Wuzi directly replaced Chen Shui's position and sat cross-legged behind Chen Hao. Her palms gently pressed on Chen Hao's vital gate. She, who had already stepped into the creation realm, had a deeper understanding of the power of reincarnation. It was no longer like before when she could only activate the power of reincarnation when she used the ultimate technique. Now, she could control her own vital essence and naturally contain the power of reincarnation. As she activated her vital essence, a mysterious aura instantly filled the entire room. Helian Wuzi activated her own energy that contained the power of reincarnation and merged it into Chen Hao's body bit by bit. Her mind also completely followed her own energy and merged with Chen Hao's physical body. Bit by bit, it approached Chen Hao's mind. It's useless. Although the power of reincarnation is mysterious and powerful, it's only useful to her own soul. This is the power that she condensed after 100 reincarnations. It has no effect on Chen Hao. Do you want to remind them? In Chen Hao's mind, the treasure-hunting sword spirit heard the old god's words and said, "Can you grow some brains? Chen Hao has never told them of our existence. You're going to remind them now." If you remind them, who would dare to take the next step? Although we're not humans, they won't care whether we're humans or not. Alright, from now on, let's enter a deep cultivation state. Otherwise, if Chen Hao knows that we're watching, he'll inevitably roar. Old God said, "That's true. Chen Hao treats us as brothers, let alone them. Damn it, let's escape. What's there to be embarrassed about? In my opinion, it's nothing. It's also meaningless. You don't understand." Of course, I don't understand either. This kid's current state is very strange. Why do I feel that he's not completely in a subconscious state of self-isolation to heal himself? What do you mean? I don't know the details either. If he's in a deep self-isolation to heal himself, there should be at least some fluctuations in his soul abode. But now, it's completely silent. Even I can't sense any changes. Maybe it's not time yet. He might be healing from the core of his soul abode. Alright, let's escape. Anyway, there's no big problem. Hiss hiss hiss. The mysterious power of reincarnation lasted for a full hour. Hellion Wuxi's mind had already integrated into Chen Hao's mind. But no matter how she called out, Chen Hao didn't have the slightest bit of response. And her power of reincarnation couldn't even lock onto the position of his soul abode, let alone nourish Chen Hao's soul. Who, when it reached 2 hours, Hellion Wuxi, whose mind was seriously exhausted, finally chose to give up powerlessly. Needless to say, the three girls could tell from Hellion Wuxi's expression that there was no progress. "Xiaolian, you do it?" Hellion Wuxi said helplessly. "Oh, then you guys go out. Don't peek?" "No, I'll bring him to the cultivation room," Tantai Lian said. In the room, even if Tantai Lian set up a restriction that could prevent Xia Yuyu and Hellion Wuxi from peeking, it definitely couldn't stop Qin Shui, whose soul perception was very strong. If such an embarrassing thing was seen, wouldn't it be terrible? "Let's do it here. The cultivation room is very hard. He's seriously injured. We promise not to peek," Qin Shui said. "Let's go, Xiao Wuyu, let's go out." As Qin Shui spoke, she didn't allow Tantai Lian to reject and pulled the two girls out. Chapter 465. After Tantai Lian closed the door, she condensed another barrier. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief with a flushed face. "They won't peek, right?" After Qin Shui, Hellion Wuxi, and Xia Yu arrived at the hall, their faces were all serious. They directly sat down cross-legged with their backs facing the steering wheel in the room. No one spoke, but they were all a little nervous. Especially when they thought of what Tantai Lian might do next, a faint blush appeared on their faces. 5 minutes passed. The three still didn't say a word, but they couldn't help but carefully sense each other's aura. 10 minutes later, Xia Yu looked at Qin Shui, then looked at Tantai Lian, and finally couldn't help but speak first. "Do you think little Lian and Hao Hao's phoenix inheritance will work? It's already been 10 minutes, I don't know if it has any effect. I'm so impatient. Aren't you worried at all?" "Who says we're not worried, but we can't peek, right?" Hellion Wuxi said, and looked at Qin Shui at the same time. After a slight pause, she said, "Sister Shui, did you already peek?" Don't talk nonsense. Why would I be?" Chen Shui blushed, frowned and glared at Hellion Wuxi, pretending to be angry. "Then why don't you look worried at all?" Hellion Wuxi frowned. "That's right, Sister Shui. If you want to look, then look. We won't tell little Lian. What's the situation now?" Xia Yuyu also said. The two of them were sure that Qin Shui had already peeked. It couldn't be helped. During this period of contact, the two of them already knew Qin Shui's abnormal soul perception. Even compared to Qin Hao, it wasn't the slightest bit weaker. If Qin Shui really wanted to peek, whether it was little Lian or them, they definitely wouldn't be able to detect it. "I really didn't look. How am I not worried? But what's the use of being worried? Do you want to peek?" I'm just a little impatient. Me too. But we don't have such strong perception. If we peek, I'm afraid it will affect little Yen. That's not good. When Xia Yuyu and Helian Wuzi heard Chen Shui's words, they naturally wouldn't say that they wanted to peek. They only said that they were anxious. So you want to peek? I have a way to let you guys peek without little Yen noticing. Chen Shui said. What method? The two of them hurriedly asked. My psychic mirror. I think I left it in my room. Chen Shuimeng whispered in embarrassment. Sister Shui, you're so sinister, you don't want to watch any more, do you? Hearing Xia Yuyu actually call her sinister, Chen Shui angrily glared at Xia Yuyu's pure and clear eyes. She was indeed a little embarrassed. However, she was doing this for the sake of Chen Hao. After all, her mother had placed a restriction on her body. For the time being, no matter what, she could not help Chen Hao. As for Helian Wuzi and Xia Yuyu, they shouldn't have this problem. However, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, and Xia Yu were all virgins and didn't have any experience in this area. What if the two of them didn't know what to do? She didn't have any experience to pass on. Even if she did, how could she have the nerve to pass it on? As for Tan Tai Lien, she was considered an expert among the four of them. She had at least experienced it once, right? Such an opportunity to observe was a great opportunity to learn. I want to watch. Sister Shui, when we activate it, will we be discovered by Xiaolian? She won't. I've placed a concealment restriction on the psychic mirror. Moreover, Xiaolian has already immersed herself in communicating with Chen Hao. Even if you try to sense it, she won't discover it. At most, she'll discover it afterwards. I'll contact you. Quickly connect. Xia Yuyu impatiently took out her psychic mirror. The three great beauties actually gathered together as if they were thieves. Even when Chen Shui used her perception to secretly look, her heartbeat quickened. After all, her perception could only sense the circulation of Tan Tai Lien's aura and roughly simulate the scene. However, it wasn't visible to the naked eye. However, the psychic mirror was different. As for Helian Wuzi and Xia Yu, they were even more nervous. Their eyes stared fixedly at the psychic mirror and even held their breaths. After Helian Wuzi sent out the signal, Chen Shui's powerful divine sense directly penetrated into the room and connected to Helian Wuzi's signal request. The psychic mirror in Helian Wuzi's hand instantly emitted rays of faint blue light. A clear image appeared in the eyes of the three people. The three great beauties all stared with their eyes wide open. They held their breaths and stared with their eyes straight. The three little faces instantly flushed red. They saw that Tan Tai Lien and Chen Hao were already completely naked. Tan Tai Lien's graceful and exquisite body was fully revealed. Her charm was fully displayed. Her entire body flickered with resplendent faint blue flames which enveloped the completely naked Chen Hao. The two of them sat cross-legged facing each other and slowly circled in the air. Seeing the completely naked Tan Tai Lien, the three girls were already extremely shy. Their heartbeats strangely accelerated to a terrifying degree. Not to mention seeing the completely naked Chen Hao. Tan Tai Lien's graceful and exquisite body caused them to exclaim in admiration in their hearts. At the same time, they were also secretly comparing. It had to be said that at any time, a woman's mentality of comparison existed. Especially in the aspect of beauty, it was even more so. And Chen Hao's streamlined muscles, full of masculinity and beauty, caused the three girls to stop breathing. This wasn't because the three girls were lustful, nor was it because they saw Chen Hao's body and were overflowing with lust. It was merely the attraction of yin and yang between them and the man they loved. Even though the current Chen Hao's aura was still terrifyingly weak, it didn't affect the visual impact he brought to the three girls. So ugly. When Xia Yuyu's gaze couldn't help but carefully size up Chen Hao's body from head to toe, and when it moved to a certain place, this innocent girl couldn't help but open her mouth and make a sound. What's ugly? Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi both looked at Xia Yuyu curiously. Xia Yuyu actually pointed at a certain place on the psychic mirror's image and said bluntly, "It's indeed ugly." Helian Wuzi slightly frowned, her face flushed red, but she resisted laughing and said very seriously, "Chen Shui couldn't help but laugh out loud. She looked at Xia Yuyu with a speechless face and said, You should not know what that is, right? What? Xia Yuyu asked in astonishment. Fifth. Helian Wuzi finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her originally cold little face looked at Xia Yuyu with eyes full of speechlessness. Even though Chen Shui and Helian Wuzi were unmarried girls, how could they not have seen the difference between a boy and a girl in their living environment since they were young? It's just that after they grew up, they didn't see it. But Xia Yu was a girl favored by the heavens, and was obviously pure to the point of idiocy. This is the difference between a man and a woman. When the real yin and yang dual cultivation, it's necessary. I also don't understand too much. Let's see, Xiaoyan should understand more than us. If Chen Hao was awake at this moment, and knew that a man and a woman were using his most precious thing to discuss beauty and ugliness, he would be so depressed that he would vomit 3 liters of blood. At this moment, I don't even feel a fart. I'm completely immersed in a mysterious state. How could it not be ugly? That's the Rui Jingu Bang. Right now it's just a little listless. Once it displays its peerless might and peerless style, who would dare to say it's ugly? Whoever says it will be served with the Jingu Bang. In the room, Tantai Lian wholeheartedly immersed herself in the arduous task of awakening Chen Hao. She only thought that Chen Shui might be spying on her, but she could only ignore it. After all, no matter how strong her perception was, she still couldn't really see. What she was doing, Chen Shui could only rely on her imagination. If she knew that her every move was being monitored by 6 big eyes, she probably wouldn't be able to enter the state at all. Unfortunately, after using an entire half an hour, Tantai Lian had activated the Phoenix Inheritance and the heavenly flames of Nirvana with limitless possibilities. Moreover, she had also raised her emotions to the point where she was almost burning with desire. However, Chen Hao still didn't give her any response. This kind of thing could only be completed when both parties were on the same page. Because this wasn't a simple XXOO, but a fusion of yin and yang. Without absolute passion and excitement, it was impossible to awaken Chen Hao's soul, not to mention a true fusion of spirit and body. Otherwise, Tantai Lian would only need to use a little bit of her energy to make certain things display their power. After an hour, Tantai Lian finally helplessly stopped activating her mind and energy. Her essence, energy, and spirit seemed to have been burned and withered. She was extremely weak. After putting on her clothes, she helped Chen Hao, who was motionless like a corpse, put on his clothes. Creak, Tantai Lian gently pushed open the door. Her face was slightly red as she peeked out. She saw 3 women sitting cross-legged with their backs facing the door. They seemed to be immersed in cultivation. I'm done. Tantai Lian let out a slight sigh of relief and said softly. After a while, Chen Shui and the other 2 acted as if they were done cultivating. They floated to Tantai Lian's side and said, Done? How is it? Tantai Lian shook her head and said, It's useless. He didn't have any reaction at all. You try it? I'd better not try. If you can't do it, then I can't either. Hearing Tantai Lian's words, Xia Yu's face immediately turned red and she said nervously, How would you know if you don't try? Tantai Lian said, Even if you try it, it definitely won't work. The ruins that Hao and I entered were only of a very low level. The cultivation method that we studied together was only of the innate realm. Now that we're all in the blessed realm, what effect can it have? It really won't work. Xia Yu said, Yu, this has nothing to do with the realm of the cultivation method. What's important is the degree of compatibility between your souls. That's right. Why don't you go to the cultivation room? Chen Hao once cultivated in the cultivation room, and there are remnants of his aura. Perhaps it will be useful? Chen Shui stared at Xia Yu and said. At the same time, she sent a message to her, Yu, this time, we promise not to peek. That should be fine, right? Chapter 466. Xia Yu agreed in the end, but she didn't go to the cultivation room. Instead, she asked Chen Shui to take away the psychic mirror. After checking it several times and confirming that there were no secrets, she started to activate the 9 revolutions Earth-Yin technique. After all, Hertz dual cultivation with Chen Hao wasn't a true fusion of spirit and body. Even if it was sensed, it was nothing compared to Tantilian's. The 9 revolutions Earth-in technique was too low level for the current Xia Yuyu. Now that she was activating it, both its power and her comprehension were countless times stronger. Waves after waves of mental shock, as well as the telepathy that she and Chen Hao had comprehended together, surged into Chen Hao's mind like a tide. But Chen Hao's mind was like refined steel. No matter how tender Xia Yu was, he didn't react at all. When her essence, energy, and spirit were exhausted, Xia Yu had to give up. What should we do? We've tried, but there's nothing we can do. We can only wait until the 3 realms are rebuilt and the passageway is restored. My mother and your master should have a way. Let's take turns for the next 2 days. Even if we can't wake him up, we have to instill energy into him. Right now, he doesn't seem to have any ability to recover. Qin Shui was at her wit's end. That's the only way. The 4 of them knew that Chen Hao's life wasn't in danger. The only thing they were worried about was the impact of Chen Hao's soul injury on his cultivation. In the cultivation world, there were many geniuses who declined due to soul injuries. Just like how Chen Hao said soul fighter during the war, the 4 girls had no idea. Central Continent, Limitless Demon Palace, Heartbroken Palace. All dead, all dead, all dead. Fan Suixin punched a mountain peak angrily and turned it into dust. Fan Suixin's towering anger made her almost crazy. In the past few months, Soul Fighter's astonishing improvement was already on the verge of entering the ranks of the top geniuses. Fan Suixin believed that Soul Fighter would definitely be able to amaze the world in the upcoming Wuji Elite Academy qualifiers and win glory and fortune for Heartbroken Hall. They were all dead. Not only was Soul Fighter dead, but all the genius disciples of Heartbroken Palace who followed Soul Fighter were dead as well. Chen Hao. Boom, under Fan Suixin's angry roar, the giant mountain peaks were directly destroyed. The land within tens of thousands of miles of Broken Heart Hall was shaking. Countless experts of Broken Heart Hall stared at the Mad Hall Master in silence, their hearts trembling with fear. Vice Palace Master, what happened to make the Palace Master so angry? Several old men quietly came to the Deputy Palace Master's side and asked through telepathy with a shocked expression. Soul Fighter is dead, what? The old men's eyes widened in shock. Not only is Soul Fighter dead, all of the genius disciples who followed him are dead as well. How is this possible? Did the Celestial Venerable, T? These old men were the higher-ups of the Broken Heart Hall, so they knew everything about Soul Fighter, the genius disciple. When they heard the Vice Palace Master's words, they immediately thought of the Celestial Venerable. The Vice Palace Master shook his head and sighed. It's Chen Hao. Chen Hao? Didn't he die in the relic? If he really died in the relic, this wouldn't happen. 2 days ago, his name appeared on the list of Elite Academy X's qualifiers. Didn't the registration end 2 months ago? He's one of the elite guardians of the Alliance. Before the start of the tournament, as long as you're in the manifestation realm, you can register at any time. Vice Palace Master, all of you come here. The experts who were whispering to each other suddenly heard Fan Suixin's voice, which resounded throughout Heartbroken Palace. They hurriedly flew over. Gather all the details of Chen Hao killing Soul Fighter and the other disciples of Heartbroken Palace, as well as the super genius disciples from other palaces that Soul Fighter invited. Report it to the headquarters and report it to the palaces that those super genius disciples belong to. Remember, all information on Chen Hao must be detailed. I don't believe that Limitless Demon Palace will allow him to grow. Yes. Vice Palace Master, once the Eastern Continent's cultivation world recovers, rush over immediately to understand the situation. Yes, Palace Master. 3 days later. We won. We won. Ha. Boom boom boom. Countless experts of the immortal Tao in the creation realm stared at the violent ripples in the air and let out cheers that reverberated throughout the world. The 3 realms and the Milky Way, under the cooperation of all the experts and the contracts signed by the 3 Taos, the 3 realms were redivided and a new boundary was formed. It was only at this moment that the real victory was here. All the major chambers of commerce had regained their communications with the outside world. The 3 teleportation portals to the outside world were restored. Immediately, countless cultivators in the eastern continent who were anxiously waiting received the news at the same time. Everyone thought that they had heard wrong. How was it possible that the immortal path had won and obtained a territory of 20 million kilometers? Chen Hao. Chen Hao. It's Chen Hao. In all the information that was sent back, there were a few names with Chen Hao as the leader. Chen Hao, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu and Tantailian. Chen Hao's astonishing battle prowess had shaken the entire eastern continent's cultivation world. Chen Hao, who had been the #1 cultivator among the younger generation of the eastern continent's immortal path, had once again become the focus of the entire immortal path in just a few short years. The intersect competition could not be compared to this time. A manifestation realm cultivator had suppressed a half-step human immortal, turned the tide, and saved the eastern continent's immortal path. What did that mean? When the news reached the eastern continent's immortal path, the 10 sects issued a joint order to hold a celebration at the stargazing sect in 3 days. All cultivators above the primordial spirit realm were eligible to participate. All qualified cultivators hurried to the stargazing sect as soon as possible, wanting to pay their respects to Chen Hao, the man who'd changed the fate of the eastern continent's immortal path. The disciples who didn't have the right to participate in the celebration were hopping mad. They asked their senior brothers and sisters to record the event with crystals. The stargazing sect disciples who'd been forcibly disbanded were so moved that tears welled up in their eyes. As for the stargazing sect disciples who'd announced in advance that they'd severed ties with the stargazing sect, they quietly went into hiding. They didn't dare return, nor did they have the face to do so. However, when Xia Lingfeng and the 10 sects issued the news, they had no idea that something had happened to Chen Hao. Stargazing sect, Chen Hao's peak. Several important figures of the eastern continent, including Yuan Tairan, Xia Lingfeng, and the other sect leaders of the 10 sects, had gathered at the entrance to Chen Hao's palace. Secret arts, 800 years of lifespan, soul damage. Xia Lingfeng and the others stared at Chen Shui and the other girls, their expressions turning from joy to solemnity. We should have thought of this. No matter how strong the numinous treasure set is, how strong can it be? He's only at the early stage manifestation realm. No matter how strong his talent and battle prowess are, there's a limit to it. How can he defeat a half-step human immortal? Xia Lingfeng's brows were deeply furrowed as he stared blankly at the palace. His gaze seemed to penetrate the palace gates and see Chen Hao, who'd fallen into a deep sleep. Everyone, this news must rot in your stomachs. No one can know about it. Chen Hao burned his lifespan for the sake of the immortal Tao, and his soul was severely damaged. He's sacrificed too much. Because of this, he may very well lose the treatment that belongs to him as a top genius. Sigh. Do you understand what I mean? Understood, Xia Lingfeng. But how long can this be hidden? The world of cultivation is cruel. Everything depends on one's strength. His soul was severely damaged, especially after burning 800 years of his lifespan. In everyone's eyes, no matter how talented Chen Hao was, he'd become a good-for-nothing. In the cruel world of cultivation, which force would be willing to waste countless resources and energy to cultivate a disciple who was destined to have no future? Of course, they knew why Xia Lingfeng wanted them to keep it a secret. He didn't want the Wuji Immortal Palace and the others to know about Chen Hao's soul damage. Only in this way could Chen Hao continue to receive resources. But even if they could hide it for a while, they couldn't hide it forever. After a while, when Chen Hao's cultivation progress was mediocre, the truth would be revealed. At that time, Chen Hao would fall from heaven to hell and become mediocre. We'll hide it for as long as we can. This is the only thing we can do for him. Now, as the #1 sect leader of the 10 immortal Tao sects, I declare that no matter what happens to Chen Hao in the future, he, his family and friends, as well as the star-picking sect, will be protected by the immortal Tao sects. Without him, the immortal Tao sects wouldn't exist today. As long as he's willing, he can use any of our resources, even if it's a waste. Do you have any objections? No, I don't have any objections. But all the resources of the immortal Dao sects in the eastern continent are already of very little use to him. He's already in the manifestation realm. It's good that you don't have any objections. Whether it's useful or not, we can only leave it to the heavens. Xia Lingfeng said, sweeping his gaze across the crowd. Then he looked at Xia Yuyu and said, Yuyu, grandfather announces today that you're officially Chen Hao's Dao companion. When he wakes up, grandfather will hold a wedding ceremony for you. Grandfather? Xia Yuyu's face turned red. It seemed that she couldn't accept Xia Lingfeng's change. Are you not willing? Xia Yuyu said, Grandfather, we've already discussed it. We'll immediately bring Hao Hao back to the central continent and ask Master for help. No. Absolutely not. Xia Lingfeng hastily said. Sect Master Xia, why not? Don't tell me you have a way? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask. Looking at Chen Shui's sharp gaze, Xia Lingfeng helplessly shook his head. We don't have a way. You can go back to the central continent, but you can't tell anyone that Chen Hao burned 800 years of his lifespan and his soul was heavily injured. Although you've been in the eastern continent for a few years, you're still young and don't understand the cruelty of the cultivation world. Forgive me for being blunt, but if you really tell the immortal reverends that Chen Hao's soul was heavily injured, I'm afraid that Chen Hao will lose the qualification to be nurtured by the limitless immortal palace. I know that the two immortal reverends are very good to you, but that's all because of your talent. What if you lose your talent? The chances of someone with a heavily injured soul being able to step into the worldly immortal realm is close to zero. No matter how good the two immortal reverends are to Chen Hao, they won't waste any more time on him. Impossible. My master, my mother is definitely not that kind of person. Chen Shui's face slightly changed. Yes, master treats Chen Hao better than us. She definitely won't ignore Chen Hao. Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lian also didn't agree with Xia Lingfeng's words. Chapter 467. That's because of the potential that Chen Hao has shown. You're too naive. Myriad Pill Pavilion's pavilion master said, Sect Master Xia and the rest of us have been in the central continent before and have seen the fate of many fallen geniuses. If you really want to help Chen Hao, you can't expose the news that Chen Hao's soul is seriously injured. If you want to help him, you have to rely on yourselves. Hide it for as long as you can, and there may be a glimmer of hope. That's right. Also, you have to talk to the disciples of Wuxia Immortal Palace who know about this. Chen Hao has helped them a lot this time, and each of them has been given a spiritual treasure. I believe it shouldn't be a problem for them to hide it for a while, Xia Lingfeng said. Under the persistent persuasion of the crowd, the four girls began to feel uneasy. Moreover, through the discussion with the crowd, the four girls understood that even immortal venerables didn't have a good way to heal the soul. The only way to heal the soul was to find rare and precious spiritual herbs, spiritual pills, and powerful dual cultivation method. Subsequently, the four women found Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the other disciples of Wuxia Immortal Palace and explained the situation tactfully. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu naturally wouldn't have any problems. As for the others, they were also hot-blooded young people who hadn't been assimilated by the cruelty of the cultivation world. They also had a pure heart and naturally agreed to keep Chen Hao's secret. Under the leadership of Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, they swore a poison oath. Although some of them had some thoughts, they could only bury it in their hearts. In their opinion, even if they didn't say anything, Chen Hao's situation would be exposed sooner or later. They just needed to maintain the treatment for a while. On the eastern continent's Immortal Path's teleportation array to Emerald Smoke City, a bright light flashed. The unconscious Chen Hao, the four women, and the people of Wuxia Immortal Palace disappeared from the teleportation array. The eastern continent's Immortal Path celebration, as well as Chen Nan, Chen Yen, and other relatives and friends who were eager to see Chen Hao, could only be comforted by Xia Lingfeng and Yuan Tairan. Wuxia Immortal Palace, Han Mei Hall. What's going on? When Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian stepped into the hall with Chen Hao. Han Mei Immortal and Yun Wei Immortal locked onto Chen Hao, who was standing in the middle. Others couldn't see what was wrong with Chen Hao at the moment, but the two could see that Chen Hao was pretending to be awake under the support of the four women's energy. The four girls bowed and greeted, "Greetings, Master Immortal. No need to be so courteous. Speak, what's the matter with this kid?" "It's like this," Chen Shui slowly explained the situation that happened in the Eastern continent during this period of time. Good. I really didn't expect this little guy to be so strong. It seems like he had a huge harvest in the ruins. He can take out so many spirit treasures. Although the mysteries of these spirit treasures are very simple, the quality is beyond imagination. It's just right for you to use. Venerable Han Mei said. It seems like our two halls are going to amaze everyone in the Wuji Elite Academy's qualifier. Come, let me see what kind of state this guy is in. Yun Wei Immortal's face had a trace of gratification and expectation. Master? When Chen Hao entered this state, he specifically told us that no one was allowed to check on his condition. He comprehended a mysterious lost art that he obtained in the historical remains. Once an external force interrupts him, he will suffer an extremely serious backlash. If we weren't in a hurry to come back and report to Master, we wouldn't have dared to bring him back. Helian Wuzi said. This guy? All right, I won't bother about him. Did he say when he will wake up? Don't miss the Elite Academy's qualifier. Yun Wei Immortal said. He said he would finish in about 20 days. It shouldn't be delayed, right? Helian Wuzi replied. Master, should I bring Chen Hao to my palace first, or? Chen Shui looked at Han Mei Immortal and asked. In formal occasions, she always called her master. His palace has already been prepared. Bring him there. There is still less than a month left. The four of you have to hurry up and train. You all have great hopes in the Elite Academy's qualifier. No matter what, you all have to seize this opportunity. Master, what's so good about the Elite Academy? Although Chen Hao can finish in 20 days, what if he doesn't wake up by then? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask. The benefits of the Elite Academy are not something you can imagine. You will understand when you enter. Now, I can simply explain it to you. Stepping into the Elite Academy means that you have stepped into the real life of a cultivator. A vast and magnificent path will be opened for you. This is definitely not something that elixirs, magical treasures, cultivation grounds, and other conditions can compare to. If you can't pass the qualifier, you will only have that qualification after reaching the immortal realm. You will understand a little when you enter the competition. Oh, the four girls became more curious, but the two immortal primes obviously didn't want to say more. This kid is hiding a great secret. No matter how powerful the relics are, it is impossible to have so many spiritual treasure sets. Also, did you notice that the spiritual treasure sets of Xiao Wu and the rest, as well as the members of Aotion, are very compatible with their attributes? The materials used are extremely precious in the whole boundless land. How could he have gotten them in the relics? No relics can have so many spiritual treasures of the same level. Even if they appeared, they should be suitable for him. How could they be suitable for others? Who doesn't have a secret among the top geniuses? You are thinking too much. Han Mei Immortal glanced at Immortal Yun Wei and said, he is only at the initial stage of the Destiny realm and has the combat power of a half-step human immortal. Even if he has a spiritual treasure set, it is still impossible. But he did it. This time, Limitless Demon Palace lost a lot of genius disciples. With Fan Suixin's character, he will definitely not let it go. Yes. It's up to him whether he'll become a stepping stone or be trampled on. However, I believe that other than those monstrous geniuses from the Limitless Devil Palace, there shouldn't be anyone who can do anything to him. Did you sense anything from his aura earlier? Venerable Yun Wei asked. His essence, qi, spirit, and soul are all hidden to an unbelievable extent. Even I can't do that. I didn't dare to invade his body to check. After the four girls left with Chen Hao, the two immortal primes talked about Chen Hao. Although the four girls deliberately exaggerated Chen Hao's powerful spiritual treasure set and mysterious secret technique, the two immortal primes still felt that Chen Hao's achievements in the Eastern continent were unbelievable. After all, the four of them couldn't hide the secret technique that Soul Fighter Mo had used and the existence of the half-step human immortal Noda Xieching in the Eastern continent. How could the two immortal primes not know the difference between the half-step human immortal and the destiny realm? But Chen Hao did it. However, Chen Hao, who had always created miracles, didn't let the two immortal primes realize that Chen Hao had also burned his true yuan. After Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ninglu, Huyan Aobua, and the others knew that Chen Hao had returned, they all rushed to the palace that immortal primes Han Mei had specially arranged for Chen Hao. However, the four of them didn't tell Huyan Aobua and the others about Chen Hao's situation. They only told the two beautiful sisters after Huyan Aobua and the others left. The demon Dao is good at dual cultivation. Huan, Lele, does your family have a dual cultivation technique that can deal with Chen Hao's condition? After explaining the situation to the two beautiful sisters, Chen Shui and the others looked at the two of them with anticipation. Sister Shui, our family doesn't pay much attention to dual cultivation. Moreover, the two of us haven't learned anything about it. Then there's no other way. We can only rely on ourselves to find it. You guys take turns to replenish his energy. I'll go take a look at the secret art library. In the next few days, Chen Shui stayed in Cold Plum Hall's secret art library. As Immortal Prime's Han Mei's direct disciple and her biological daughter, Chen Shui had extremely high authority in Cold Plum Hall. Of course, this was also brought about by her talent. She had the authority to read all the information about the secret art library that was below the creation realm. However, after secretly flipping through all the dual cultivation techniques, Chen Shui couldn't find any that was suitable for Chen Hao's current condition. Instead, it gave her a deeper understanding of dual cultivation techniques. Dual cultivation with a Dao partner was indeed a great cultivation technique that was extremely effective for cultivators. However, even if many genius disciples had a Dao partner early on, they didn't really start dual cultivation. Originally, Chen Shui didn't understand. Dual cultivation could allow cultivators to advance faster and benefit a lot. Why didn't many people dual cultivate? Why did her mother stop her from being with Chen Hao? However, she understood now. If one could rely on one's talent to advance bravely, it was best to cultivate by oneself. Only when one encountered a bottleneck that one couldn't overcome, that was, when one's talent was pushed to the limit and there was no hope of advancing, would it be the best time to start dual cultivation. Otherwise, if one started too early, dual cultivation would only bring about obvious short-term effects, but it would be disadvantageous in the long run. Simply put, dual cultivation was like a super elixir that didn't differentiate between realms. It was the key to breaking through one's limits. The earlier one used it, the more wasted it would be. The later one used it, the higher the long-term benefits. These dual cultivation techniques have to be in a state of sobriety and achieve spiritual integration first. Only then can the yin and yang complement each other further. I've already checked all the dual cultivation manuals. There are more than 10,000 of them. Why isn't there a single one? Chen Shui frowned and put down the last book that introduced the dual cultivation technique. More than 10,000 books on dual cultivation techniques covered all kinds of aspects that Chen Shui couldn't think of. Most of them were in the primordial soul realm and creation realm, but none of them were helpful. This made Chen Shui feel strange. After all, Cold Plum Hall was one of the main halls of Wuji Immortal Palace. Although it didn't dare to say that it was the most comprehensive, it was at least one of the best in the entire central mainland. Idiot! Why didn't I think of this? Chen Hao's soul is severely injured now, and he has fallen into a deep soul self-healing state. This is an illness. I should start with the healing manuals. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Chen Shui's mind. Her beautiful eyes emitted 2 rays of light, and her figure flashed as she rushed to the healing manuals section. Physical injuries, meridians injuries, internal organs injuries, soul injuries. After seeing the section for soul injuries, Chen Shui rushed over excitedly. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 468. In the palace, Chen Hao was lying flat on the bed. Judging from his appearance and aura, he was already a corpse in the eyes of ordinary people. Even if the masters of the practice world invaded his mind to sense, they could only determine that Chen Hao's soul had not dissipated. No one knew what kind of pain Chen Hao was suffering in the depths of his mind. Even the old deity and the treasure-hunting sword spirit did not know. Burning one's lifespan was burning one's life and soul. The soul was the ruler of intelligent life and the foundation of a practitioner. What was talent? Talent included the quality of the body and the quality of the soul. The higher the quality of the body, the stronger the defensive and offensive power of the practitioner in the same realm, and the more powerful the Dharma power. The immortal body was the best quality body. But the quality of the soul was what really determined how far a practitioner could go. When a practitioner was a low-level warrior until the peak of the creation realm, the advantage of the quality of the body was obvious. The quality of the soul was relatively weak. But after the creation realm and the human immortal realm, the quality of the soul would be prominent. It was also the most important factor after the celestial prime realm. The stronger the soul, the greater the potential. Because the stronger the soul's endurance, comprehension, state of mind, willpower, etc. would be, and the greater the potential. This was the fundamental reason why Xia Lingfeng and the others did not want Chen Shui to reveal Chen Hao's soul injury. After the celestial prime realm, how much potential could a person whose soul was seriously injured have? Moreover, Chen Hao was only at the initial stage of the creation realm. If his soul was not injured, they believed that with Chen Hao's talent, he would definitely be able to step into the human immortal realm. But now it was hard to predict. Hiss, accompanied by Chen Hao's crazy roars, the horrible pain of crushing his soul into powder almost made Chen Hao faint again and again. What's going on? The backlash of burning one's lifespan would not be like this. I have to stay awake. Once I faint, I will die. That cannot die. Chen Hao had never thought that such a strange situation would occur. According to the records of the Great Devouring Technique, the price he had to pay for using the secret technique was that his soul had been severely damaged. At most, he would fall into a state of self-recovery and sleep for a very long time. However, the moment he fell into a deep sleep, his mind underwent a tremendous change. His soul seemed to have solidified and appeared in an endless dark space. From time to time, a terrifying golden light would rise up. Every time this happened, it felt like his soul was being torn apart. This kind of pain was 100 times, 1,000 times more intense than any pain he had ever experienced before. In the beginning, Chen Hao clenched his teeth and was able to bear it. However, as time passed, the soul-crushing pain became more and more intense. No matter how determined Chen Hao was, he could not help but burst out with painful howls. Even though Chen Hao didn't know why he'd fallen into such a state, he was very clearly aware that once he fell unconscious, it meant that his will had collapsed and his soul had dispersed. Then he would die without a doubt. No one could stop him and no one could save him. He had tried to contact the old god and the treasure hunter sword spirit, but his soul and mind were imprisoned in this boundless darkness and could not send out any messages. The only thing he could rely on was himself. Rumble. The inconceivably terrifying golden light erupted again and instantly bombarded the depths of Chen Hao's soul. Like an outbreak of a plague, it spread to every strand of Chen Hao's mind. Pain, endless pain, once again bombarded Chen Hao's soul and turned it into fine powder. Gather, 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 gather for me. The remnant will frantically rang out in Chen Hao's mind. The moment the golden light disappeared, the dissipated soul began to gather again. This was the nirvana of the soul and the reorganization of the will. It played out again and again in Chen Hao's mind. Without the concept of time and space, every minute and every second felt as long as billions of years. Every time Chen Hao gathered, he felt as if he had experienced billions of years. However, the soul that he had painstakingly gathered with his life was instantly destroyed by the terrifying golden light again. It was as if billions of years of pain were endless. When he couldn't bear it anymore, his soul would be annihilated again. Again and again, the remnant he could leave became weaker and weaker, and the speed of gathering became slower and slower. Chen Hao didn't know how many times he could bear it, but he knew that if this continued, there would be a day when he would truly turn into dust and never wake up again. No, absolutely not. If this continues, how long can I hold on? I don't know what's going on, but I know that this is the most severe test I've ever faced. I can feel that my will is becoming more and more determined. If I can wake up, my mental cultivation will definitely improve tremendously, but the premise is that I can hold on. What should I do? What should I do? Should I just passively endure it? Should I just wait for death? There must be a way. Chen Hao roared in his mind when he began to endure the golden light again. Let him be strong, a gentle breeze brushes the hills. Perfection is like water. Among the 3,000 great ways, various mysteries of cultivating the state of mind began to appear in Chen Hao's mind. While enduring the crushing pain of his soul, he sought a way to break through the shackles of his mind. He wanted to transcend. Only by transcending this pain, overlooking it and ignoring it, could he survive this tribulation. Unfortunately, after experiencing it countless times, Chen Hao found that his thinking was too naive. This was a kind of pain that came from the depths of his soul. It was a real pain that wouldn't be transferred by his will. Spiritual transcendence such as IQ and so on had no effect at all. How could it be possible to transcend? The only thing he could do was to endure it. If I can't resist, then I'll close my eyes and enjoy it. Come on more fiercely. Pain. Isn't it just pain? I, Chen Hao, will never be defeated by you. Again and again his body was crushed and condensed. The obsession to survive and the arrogance in his heart made him persevere and not give up. Every time his soul was crushed into powder, Chen Hao's remaining will became weaker and weaker, but he was able to persevere every time. No, it wasn't perseverance, but to enjoy without any distractions. To enjoy the pain, to face the pain head-on, to resist the pain. He was no longer running away, no longer dodging. Instead, he was facing the pain seriously and without any distractions. This was a completely perverted behavior, but Chen Hao had really achieved it without any distractions, to the point of becoming crazy. Completely immersed in this state, he didn't feel anything except pain. There was only endless pain and endless suffering. In this state, he didn't realize that every time his soul was reorganized, there was a very subtle change in his soul. It was a very small change that couldn't be noticed if one didn't pay attention. But at this moment, if Chen Hao seriously compared his soul at the beginning with the soul that had been crushed and reorganized countless times, he would find that there was a shocking gap. Similarly, every time his will was crushed, it seemed to be getting weaker and weaker, but it was becoming more and more condensed and firm like the soul that was being reorganized. Time passed day by day. Chen Hao, who was in a strange state, had no sense of time at all. He didn't have time to think or consider, and the pain he suffered became greater and greater. There was only one obsession in his mind, and that was to survive. For his parents, for his brothers and sisters, for his beloved woman, for his brothers and sisters, and for all the people he couldn't let go of, he had to survive. For his obsession, the obsession of immortality, the obsession of stepping onto the peak of martial arts, he had to survive. How could he die? How could he die? No, it still doesn't work. Why? Why isn't there any reaction? Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yu, Tantai Lian, and the Lung sisters, after Chen Shui had tried all the methods to deal with soul injuries, their mood became worse and worse, and they became more and more nervous. He has been unconscious for 20 days now, what should we do? Chen Shui looked at the girls and asked helplessly. There were only 5 days left before the Boundless Continent's Elite Academy's qualifiers would officially begin. In 2 days they would set off. But now, Chen Hao still didn't have any improvement. Even if they used some methods to make Chen Shui and the rest extremely embarrassed, there was no effect. Even the violent, masculine wind powder had been used. Masculine wind powder, as the name suggested, rejuvenated a man's masculinity. It was a famous evil medicine in the world of cultivation. Any man, as long as he wasn't dead, even if he was in a vegetative state, As long as he took the masculine wind powder, he would be able to stimulate the most primitive desires from the inside out. According to the information that Chen Shui had seen in the Secret Arts Library, if one wanted to wake Chen Hao up, one could use the masculine wind powder to let his body erupt with the most primitive desires from the inside out, regardless of the soul. As long as one could do this and use the dual cultivation absolute art, there would be a high chance of awakening Chen Hao's soul. This was a dual cultivation absolute art that combined the physical body and stimulated the fusion of soul and flesh. After feeding Chen Hao the masculine wind powder, his physical body was like a corpse, and there was no reaction at all. It made it impossible for them to continue even if they wanted to give themselves to him. He hasn't woken up yet? Just when the 6 girls were at their wits' end, the voice of Senior Immortal Han Mei suddenly appeared in their ears. Immediately, Senior Immortal Han Mei and Senior Immortal Yun Wei appeared in front of the 6 girls. No, the 6 girls' expressions changed as they hurriedly responded. It's really strange. The 6 of you have been sneaking around these few days. What's going on? And little Shui, you've been reading the secret manual in the soul injury area these few days. What's going on? Could it be that Chen Hao's soul is severely injured? You want to wake him up? Senior Immortal Han Mei looked at Chen Shui and frowned. Tell me, what's going on? Don't think that we can't tell. You must be hiding something. Now, if you don't tell me, I'll have to use force. Chapter 469. In these 10 days, Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei were equally anxious. As the qualifiers approached, if Chen Hao didn't wake up, they would miss this opportunity. This wasn't something they wanted to see. Moreover, the sneaky actions of Chen Shui and the other 5 had been noticed by both of them. Unfortunately, both of them had captured Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu and the rest to interrogate them. They had even sent people to the eastern continent to investigate the situation, but they didn't find anything. However, their instincts told them that they were hiding something. There were still 2 days before they had to set off. Both of them couldn't help but come to the palace where Chen Hao was and began to interrogate Chen Shui and the other 5. Mother, do we really don't know? Still lying? Do you really want him to miss this qualifiers? Do you know how big of a loss it would be to enter Elite Academy X a year later? Venerable Han Mei stared at Chen Shui and said seriously, although the qualifiers of Elite Academy X are held every year, there is only one important opportunity every 60 years. If you miss this year, unless Chen Hao can step into the immortal realm, you will have to wait another 60 years. Is this the result you want? Hearing Venerable Han Mei's words, the 6 girls were shocked. After looking at each other, Chen Shui took a deep breath and asked, Mother, what's the situation in Elite Academy X? All you need to know is that the qualifiers this time are very important. Are you going to speak or not? Venerable Han Mei said sternly. So we thought that his soul was severely injured, so we didn't dare to tell you. We were afraid that you would. Chen Shui knew that she couldn't hide it anymore. We were afraid that you would give up on him. But now, I've checked all the secret manuals on soul injuries. Even the most serious soul injury would at most sleep for 10 days before waking up. But it's already been 20 days, and we've used all kinds of methods, but we still couldn't wake him up. Soul injury? As expected. No wonder all of you hid it. When Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei heard Chen Shui's words, they were enlightened. However, they weren't surprised. Obviously, both of them had already guessed the reason. Tell me, what's going on? What did Chen Hao tell you before he fell into a coma? At that time, Soul Fighter Mo used his secret technique and faced the threat of Noda Xieqing, a half-step human immortal. Chen Hao, he had no choice but to secretly burn 800 years of his life. What? The 2 venerables widened their eyes in shock. They had guessed that Chen Hao's soul had been severely damaged and that he must have used a secret technique to burn his lifespan. However, they had never imagined that he had burned his lifespan for 800 years. What did 800 years mean? A manifestation realm cultivator only had a lifespan of 1,000 years. Burning 800 years of his lifespan was equivalent to destroying 4/5 of his soul. How could he possibly recover from such a heavy injury? He said, it won't affect him too much. Mother, Apotheosis Yunwei, I believe that Chen Hao won't be affected too much. You can't ignore him, Master. Chen Hao will be fine. Even if his soul is injured, he will still be stronger than us. Master, shut up. The two venerables' expressions became extremely ugly as they shouted at the 6 women. Apotheosis Han Mei was so angry that her lips were trembling. She stared at Chen Shui and the others and said, Why didn't you stop him? Mother, we only knew about it after the event. Bastard. Bastard. Just because of the immortal Tao in the Eastern continent, just because of such a small matter, he risked his life. 800 years of lifespan. That's 800 years of lifespan. Sigh. It's too late to say anything now. Apotheosis Han Mei, this kid is too young. If we were his age, I'm afraid we would have done the same thing. What a pity. Apotheosis Yunwei shook her head and said, her eyes full of disappointment. Seeing the two venerables' expressions, Qin Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yu, Tentai Lian, and the two beautiful sisters suddenly revealed a look of horror. The way they looked at the two venerables also changed. Although the two of them had yet to reveal Chen Hao's final fate, Qin Shui and the others were already aware of it. It seemed, just as Xia Lingfeng had said, the world of cultivation was a cruel place. When a genius became mediocre, he would lose everything he had. This was the merciless Tao. Mother, Master, there's no need to say anything. We know what you're worried about. Things have already reached this stage. Even we can't do anything about it. Even if he's a genius, he won't be able to recover from such a serious injury to his soul. Even if he can wake up, I'm afraid he won't be able to step into the human celestial realm in this lifetime. This also means that he only has a little more than 100 years left. Impossible. Mother, you can't judge Chen Hao by an ordinary person's standards. He's definitely not as simple as you think. As long as he's a human, no matter how talented he is, he won't be able to escape the restrictions of the heavenly Tao. Mother knows how you feel about him, but that's the truth. Don't worry, whether it's me or Apotheosis Yunwei, we won't give up on him. We can tell you now that as long as you can enjoy the treatment, we'll give it to him as well. After all, since he started cultivating until now, strictly speaking, we've never helped him or provided him with anything. Mother's only worry is that he can't accept the reality. All of you work hard. Mother promises to give him the best treatment as a core disciple of Cold Plum Hall. As long as he needs it, we'll treat him the same as you. I believe in him. Mother, do you know how he got those spiritual treasure sets? Do you know where he got those precious refining materials from? You don't know. None of you know. He's definitely not someone you can imagine, definitely not. Chen Shui's beautiful little face turned cold. Although her mother didn't act like what Xia Lingfeng said, her words all revealed that she had given up on Chen Hao. Even the promised treatment was because of them. This made Chen Shui extremely sad. She knew Chen Hao very well, and she knew his character very well. She could imagine what decision Chen Hao would make if he was faced with such a situation after he woke up. Relying on his own woman to get pity? Was that still Chen Hao? We know that he has secrets. Little Shui, Mother knows how you feel about him, and I also know that he used to be a monstrous talent, but... Apotheosis Yunwei paused for a while and said, all right, let's put this matter aside for now. There are 2 more days before we depart. What you should do now is to adjust your mentality and prepare for the selection competition of Elite Academy X. This is a rare opportunity for you. That's right. When Chen Hao will wake up, and what kind of situation he will be in when he wakes up, we can't predict at all. We can only wait. Apotheosis Yunwei said, if he wakes up, I will participate in the competition. If he doesn't, I won't go either. Chen Shui shook her head and said, me too. Me too. Helian Wuzi and the other 4 said one after another. Their expressions were firm and unshakable. Nonsense. Could it be that all of you are giving up just because of him? If it wasn't for the special situation this year, it would be fine. At most, we can wait for another year. But if we miss this year, we will have to wait for another 60 years. Apotheosis Yunwei, who was usually not angry, couldn't help but reprimand when she saw Heli and Wuxi and the others like this. Don't you all believe in Xianxia? If he recovers, how long do you think you can stay with him? What's the point of waiting for him? It's fine if he can't recover, but what if he recovers? Can your talent be compared to his? If you don't work hard now and miss this opportunity, once he recovers, the gap between you and him will be even bigger. One day, he will leave you far behind. Apotheosis Han Mei said coldly, whether it's for him or for yourself, you'd better think about it carefully. Give me an answer tonight. If you insist, Apotheosis Yun Wei, and I will not stop you. Yun Wei, let's go. After the two celestial primes finished speaking, they left the palace at the same time, leaving the 6 women in a daze. Rumble. Old deity. In the depths of Xianxia's mind, when a stalwart figure approached a dark light spot, it suddenly shone with a bright golden light. Almost in an instant, the stalwart figure was blasted away. Not far away, another figure screamed in horror. This. Mysterious fluctuations floated in Xianxia's mind. After an hour, the stalwart figure condensed again, his face full of shock. The stalwart figure was the old deity. How could this be? How could it be so terrifying? Upon hearing the old deity's words, the treasure hunter sword spirit asked nervously, Old deity, what's going on? I don't know. With my current mental cultivation base, I can't even get close to it. In an instant, just an instant, my mental cultivation base was blasted away and crushed into powder. If I were a soul, I'm afraid my soul would have been destroyed. Even though I've only activated a tiny bit of my current mental strength, it's still at the peak of the worldly immortal realm, yet it was actually unable to withstand a single blow. If I'm not wrong, then the mental attack created by this black dot is at least at the initial stage of the earthly immortal realm. Moreover, Xianxia is trapped within it. Inconceivable, inconceivable. Such a strange situation is something that even my previous masters have never encountered. Could it be that it's because Xianxia's soul is comparatively special? The old deity muttered to himself with a shocked expression as though he did not hear the treasure hunter sword spirit's question. It must be. His soul was originally the fusion of 2 lifetimes, and one of them was even cultivated through heaven-defying technological means. Such a soul had probably transcended beyond the cycle of reincarnation and wasn't part of the origin. In addition, the fusion of 2 souls had caused his soul to mutate. Such a mutated soul, after suffering a great soul injury, would begin to repair itself, evolve, or even fuse further. It must be so. That must be the case. Chapter 470. The old god was Xianxia's biggest secret. The old god had traveled the starry sky with his powerful master for generations. He had seen a lot of things. However, the black dot in front of him was something he had never heard of or seen before. His ability was improved as he merged with Xianxia. Before Xianxia surpassed his peak state, the old god would always be 1 stage higher than Xianxia. Only in this way could he carry out the intention of the inheritance and guide and protect Xianxia. However, at this moment, the old god who was at the peak of the later stage of the human celestial stage was destroyed by a small black dot in Xianxia's mind. He couldn't even get close to it, let alone go deep into it to check on Xianxia's condition. This was unbelievable. How could he not be shocked? This meant that Xianxia had completely broken the shackles of the strongest inheritance he carried, and had broken free from the restraints of the old god's inheritance. This was because his state of mind, soul, and willpower had clearly surpassed the realm that the old god could display. Otherwise, Xianxia's soul should have dissipated and not be immersed in this state of self-isolation and complete restraint. Old god, old god? The treasure-hunting sword spirit couldn't help but ask again. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This state is definitely not the state that a soul injury should be in. Once he wakes up, his state of mind, soul, and will be greatly improved. It has transcended. As long as he wakes up. Oh God, what do you mean? Even though I don't know exactly what sort of state he's in right now, I'm sure he's definitely enduring boundless pain. This is a form of tempering of the soul, will, and state of mind. That boundless pressure is sufficient to crush a peak human immortal. He's still persisting? If he's able to endure it, then he'll absolutely obtain a shocking improvement. If he fails, fail? Yes, fail. If he fails, he'll be consigned to eternal damnation. You and I will enter the reincarnation cycle again and wait for the next opportunity? Are you serious? It's so serious. Is there any way to help him? Old God, I don't want to fall into endless darkness and wait again. There's no way. Now he can only rely on himself. The only thing we can do is to pray that he can hold on. His aura is still growing. Even though it's very slow compared to 20 days ago, he's already a few realms stronger. I really don't know how long he'll be able to sustain this for. Fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Whether it's fortune or misfortune, it all depends on him. No matter what, there is still a chance of survival. This is the law of the heavenly Tao. I hope he can grasp it. Old God said with uncertainty. Even though Chen Hao had never disappointed him before, the change this time was too sudden, too violent, and too unimaginable. Chen Hao, who was only at the creation realm, was immersed in a pressure that could instantly destroy the mind of a peak human immortal. What sort of concept was this? Moreover, this pressure was still slowly increasing. Although the rate of increase was becoming slower and slower, it showed no signs of stopping. This meant that as time passed, it would definitely increase to an even more terrifying level. Could Chen Hao hold on? When will it end? Old God couldn't be sure, and no one could be sure. What should we do? The women were at their wits' end. Venerable Han Mei's last words were like a wake-up call to the 6 women's hearts. They had been immersed in the state of worrying about Chen Hao, which made them forget the tension that had once been hidden in the depths of their hearts. Yes, it was tension. Chen Hao's heaven-defying talent and abnormal combat strength, although he was in the same realm as them, had far exceeded their understanding. Chen Shui and the others had realized this a long time ago. It was precisely because of this that every single one of them was working hard and doing their best to improve themselves and become stronger. However, the gap between them and Chen Hao was still growing larger and larger. Just like what Venerable Han Mei had said, if this continued, one day, they would become Chen Hao's baggage and affect Chen Hao's development. At that time, although Chen Hao would not abandon them, it was impossible for them to be together all the time. Just like Mo Yui, Yang Fan, and the others at this moment, they had been left far behind. With Chen Hao's character, how could he be willing to be ordinary? No matter how good Chen Hao was to them, he would not deliberately slow down his pace because of them. Similarly, they would not let themselves become a burden to Chen Hao. Believe in him. He will be fine. In that case, when everyone looked at Chen Shui took a deep breath and said with determination in her eyes, "We will participate in the preliminaries. We must become stronger." Sister Shui is right, we must become stronger. Xia Yu said. But he needs us to maintain his energy. If we participate in the competition, we must bring him along. Tan Tai Lien looked at Chen Hao, who was in a coma. Buzz, What the 6 women did not expect was that as soon as Tan Tai Lien finished speaking and everyone looked at Chen Hao, a majestic and pure energy fluctuation suddenly gushed out from Chen Hao's body. The 6 women exclaimed at the same time and their expressions became unusually excited. Hiss, 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 hiss. Chen Hao! How? The 6 people rushed to Chen Hao's side and shouted excitedly. Hello. An unfamiliar and old voice resounded in the 6 women's ears at the same time. It was a voice transmission and not a voice. Who is it? Who is it? The 6 women were startled at the same time and looked around vigilantly, protecting Chen Hao in the middle. Don't be surprised, I have known you for a long time. It's just that you don't know me. I am the spirit of an inherited treasure that Master obtained. You can call me treasure hunting? Oh, my master is Chen Hao. This master has not woken up yet and will not wake up for the time being. It should take a period of time. Maybe a month, maybe a year, maybe even longer. As for when he will wake up, I am not sure. You don't have to worry too much. Master has fallen into a strange state. The injury to his soul no longer exists. No one can help him. You will only affect him if you are here. I can help Master recover his energy, so you don't have to worry. Just don't let anyone disturb Master. The voice of Treasure Hunting's sword spirit resounded in the 6 women's minds again. Treasure hunt? How? What's going on? What state is he in? I don't know, and no one can know. Even the strongest people in the boundless world can't know. I can only tell you that if Master wakes up, although he will still be in the blessed realm, his mental cultivation will reach an unbelievable realm. If you want what is good for Master, then work hard in your cultivation. I don't want you to be a burden to Master. Treasure Hunting's sword spirit said bluntly, a long time ago, Master chose a cultivation technique for all of you. I will teach it to all of you now. While Master is in this state, all of you have to work hard to improve. Otherwise, even though Master cares about all of you, he will eventually go further and further away. Is he dangerous? Chen Shui asked with a frown. He is not dangerous. How can there be danger? All of you just have to work hard in your cultivation and do your best to improve yourselves. Treasure Hunting's sword spirit said. No. Chen Shui said, you are lying. Cough cough. How can I lie? I am telling the truth. All right, if you work hard in your cultivation and improve yourselves, you will be helping Master to the greatest extent. That's all I have to say. I am just a wisp of divine consciousness, and I can't hold on any longer. After Treasure Hunting's sword spirit finished speaking, it directly cut off the mental connection with the 6 women and escaped into the depths of Chen Hao's mind with a forehead full of sweat. Then, it was met with the old god's scolding for not being able to do such a trivial thing. Wait, Chen Shui said in a panic. Unfortunately, Treasure Hunting's sword spirit did not dare to give her another chance. No matter how the 6 of them called out, there was no reply. Chen Hao is in danger. He is definitely in danger, Sister Shui. How do you know? Didn't Treasure Hunting say that there is no danger? He said that he doesn't know what state Chen Hao is in. Also, he said that if Chen Hao can wake up, what does that mean? It means that he is not sure if Chen Hao can wake up. Then what should we do? There is no other way. I already knew that his body contained a secret, but I didn't expect it to be an artifact spirit. An artifact spirit is connected to its master's mind. If the artifact spirit doesn't know what is going on, what can we do? What Treasure Hunting said is right. We should use all our strength to improve our realm and strength, and not do meaningless waiting. Because we believe in Chen Hao. We believe that he will definitely wake up. Let's go find Master. Oh, don't tell anyone about Treasure Hunting's appearance. We only need to know. My mother and your master are not as heartless as sect leader Xia said, but the cultivation world is cruel, this is the truth. As long as we are strong enough, Master and the rest will definitely fulfill their promise to us. And Chen Hao will wake up, he definitely will. Hiss hiss hiss, limitless immortal palace, Winter Plum Hall's core region. On top of a majestic mountain peak, a terrifying energy fluctuation appeared in the void. In a radius of 10,000 miles, heaven and earth's spiritual energy surged violently and surged towards this majestic mountain peak. The tribulation cloud spanned 1,000 miles, emitting a terrifying aura. Countless disciples of Winter Plum Hall stared at the 2 figures standing on the mountain peak, their eyes filled with envy. Senior Huan Huan and Senior Lele will definitely succeed, of course. I just don't know if the 2 of them will be like Senior Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian from Yunwei Hall, and succeed in resisting the heavenly punishment. After all, they practice demonic arts. Although they have joined Winter Plum Hall, compared to Limitless Demon Palace, our demonic arts are still lacking. In addition, the 2 of them are telepathic and triggered the heavenly punishment at the same time. Just looking at this aura, it is not inferior to Senior Chen Shui's heavenly punishment that shocked the cultivation world. Yes. 10 years, they have only been in Elite Academy for 10 years, and they have already triggered the heavenly punishment. This is too shocking. It is said that the 6 of them are all first-class figures in Elite Academy. Chapter 471. They succeeded in resisting the divine punishment. Our Winter Plum Hall has 2 more young and powerful celestial primes. Good. Good. Countless disciples of Winter Plum Hall and Friendship Hall, Rue Weaver Hall, stared from afar at the beautiful sisters of the Lung clan who were enveloped in a ball of auspicious light. They were all filled with envy and excitement. It's been 10 years. In the void, Han Mei's face was filled with relief. But when she saw the sisters rushing towards that palace, a trace of sadness appeared between her brows. Yes, it's been 10 years. 10 years ago, the 6 of them passed the selection and became disciples of Elite Academy X. Only Xiao Shui and Xiao Wu obtained the membership of Vast Universe Galaxy. I thought Yu and the rest would have to wait for at least 60 years, but they all did it in 10 years. The membership of Vast Universe Galaxy was an extremely rare opportunity for the boundless continent. It was the dream of tens of thousands of genius disciples in Elite Academy X. But the quota was pitifully small. Every 60 years, the boundless continent could only obtain 1,000 quotas. These 1,000 quotas were obtained through layers of selection. The competition was extremely fierce. Without extremely high talent, it was impossible to obtain it. Any disciple who could obtain it in Elite Academy was definitely a demon-level genius. After all, the disciples of Elite Academy X who had accumulated for thousands of years were all in the creation realm. Once they broke through to the immortal realm, they would automatically leave Elite Academy X and become the celestial primes of the boundless continent. To be able to obtain it in the creation realm was definitely the highest honor in the boundless continent. 10 years ago, Chen Shui, who had a strong soul, relied on her terrifying battle strength and the platinum sky-splitting slash of the Great Five Elements art. After passing the Elite Academy selection, she fought her way to the 436th place in the Elite Academy and obtained the qualifications. Hellion Wuzi relied on the most mysterious 100 reincarnation strength between heaven and earth and fought her way to the 639th place, similarly obtaining the qualifications. As for Xia Yu, Tantai Lian, the Lung sisters, Jiang Hai, Huang Wenshu, Huyan Aobua, and Meng Xiao, although the 8 of them passed the selection of Elite Academy X, they were not in the top 1,000. Shi Wang, Jing Tiangang, Bailey Lianqing, and the rest did not even pass the selection. They only became members of Elite Academy X in the 2nd year. In the world of cultivation, it was an extremely long process from the creation realm to the human immortal realm. Many cultivators, or to be exact, 99.9% of cultivators, were stuck at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm. They could not even reach the half-step human immortal realm, let alone the human immortal realm. Just like the sect masters and grand elders of the 3 sects in the eastern continent, if they did not encounter a powerful fortuitous encounter in their lives, the creation realm would be their final destination. It was the same in the central continent. Even the gathering place of the boundless continent's most talented disciples, the Boundless Elite Academy, was no exception. There were many disciples who had entered the Elite Academy who had been stuck in the manifestation realm for decades or even close to 100 years. Because of this, in the eyes of exalted Han Mei and exalted Yun Wei, if Xia Yuyu's group of 4 wanted to obtain the qualifications to become a member of Vast Universe Star River, they would have to wait at least 60 years for a new round of qualifications. However, in just a short 10 years, they had officially obtained it by ascending to the human immortal stage. Anyone in the boundless world, once they stepped into the worldly immortal realm, would immediately obtain the qualifications to become a member of the Vast Universe Galaxy. This was the most basic way to obtain it, and it was also the way most people obtained it. Only the Elite Academy's qualifying battle, which was held once every 60 years, would allow those in the Destiny realm to obtain it in advance. In these 10 years, the Eastern Continent's immortal Dao's fate has gathered, and countless talented disciples have emerged. Especially those who are related to him, their progress is even more shocking. You've really profited, exalted Han Mei said. My Hall Master Yun Wei is in charge of the Eastern Continent's immortal Dao. It's useless even if you're envious. Back then, I didn't fight with you for Xiao Shui and him. Proud Skies members have also been placed under your name. What you've obtained isn't any less than me. Moreover, in these 10 years, those few guys have made Proud Sky famous, and even the palace master has noticed. Han Mei, I have a feeling. What? I believe you should have felt it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have specially mentioned those who are related to him, right? Exalted Han Mei frowned slightly and said, yes, I felt it, but I can't be sure. After all, Xiao Shui, Xiao Wu, and the others are all from the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao. Moreover, those who are related to him are also related to Xiao Shui and the others. You have to know that although 10 years have passed, which one of Xiao Shui and the others isn't thinking about him? Whether it's because of his fate, can you be sure? That's true. Oh right, among the applicants for this year's Elite Academy selection competition, it said that there's an Eastern Continent's Demon Dao disciple. Eastern Continent's Demon Dao disciple? This isn't strange. The rise of the Eastern Continent's immortal Dao means that the Eastern Continent's Demon Dao disciple's fate would naturally increase. Wouldn't the Demon Dao disciple be half a foot taller? For the future of the boundless continent, the three palace masters wouldn't let one family dominate. But when that Demon Dao disciple stepped into the central continent, he was already at the peak of a half-step human immortal. Peak of a half-step human immortal? Exalted Han Mei was slightly shocked. That's right. This is what's really shocking. Under the restrictions of the Eastern Continent's heavenly Tao, even if one could advance to a half-step human immortal, he would definitely be near the end of his lifespan and have cultivated some heaven-defying evil techniques. For example, Oda Xieching, who failed to pass the tribulation a few years ago. But the disciple who signed up this time has an extremely young life force, similar to Xiao Shui and the others. When he just stepped into the central continent, he displayed an extremely heaven-defying battle prowess. It's said that he has already attracted the favor of the limitless Demon Palace Master. Compared to Chen Hao, his talent and battle prowess are even stronger, comparable to a human immortal. He's known as the monstrous genius of the boundless continent. Even our Palace Master and the Demon Palace Master are envious of him. What's his name? Fang Handong, the disciple of the limitless Demon Palace, gave him the title Invincible East. He joined the Broken Heart Palace of the limitless Demon Palace. During the assessment of his strength, he defeated 3 experts of the initial stage of the human immortal realm. He's known as the Invincible One under the human immortal realm. Even the top geniuses of the Elite Academy can't be compared to him. What's even more envious is that this person originally had a handsome face with sword scars on his face, each of which contained the undying sword will. But after he was favored by the Palace Master of the limitless Demon Palace, he actually comprehended the undying sword way, which made the sword scars on his face disappear. He became a handsome young man, and then he was favored by the daughter of the Palace Master of the limitless Demon Palace's direct descendant, Wang Lin. He soared to the sky. Wang Lin? Cough cough. Han Mei, didn't you erase that memory? I only erased the memory of being together with him, not all of it. Exalted Han Mei said. She did erase the memory of Chen Hai, but it was only the memory that was engraved in her heart. It didn't mean that she had erased everything. Wang Lin was the favored daughter of the demonic sect, and she used to be one of her rivals in love. If she had heard this name before, she would have been angry. But now, she could deal with it calmly. Love was gone, so why would she be angry? Why did he join the Broken Heart Palace? I'm also curious about this. With Fan Suixin's hatred for us, I'm afraid that this preliminaries. Hearing Exalted Yunwei's words, Han Mei frowned. In the past 10 years, although the disciples of Han Mei Palace and Yunwei Palace performed well in every Elite Academy's preliminaries, many of them were seriously injured or even killed. This was all because of Chen Hao. Back then, the genius disciples of Limitless Demon Palace that were killed by Chen Hao belonged to several palaces of Limitless Demon Palace. How could they not hate him? And anyone who was related to Chen Hao would suffer the most severe revenge. Fortunately, the 2 exalted immortals were not to be trifled with. The girls, Huyin Aobua, and the rest also did not disappoint. Even if they were seriously injured, they made the other party their training target. No one died. But it was different this time. Fang Handong's strength was comparable to a human immortal. Facing such a powerful existence, what could the disciples of the two palaces do, no matter how talented they were? As long as they met him, they might die in his hands without any chance to resist. Greetings to Master, Uncle Master. Just when Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei were having a headache over the upcoming Elite Academy's qualifiers, the beautiful sisters came to the front of the two of them and bowed down. In the past 10 years, as the friendship between Han Mei and exalted Yun Wei deepened, the two palaces were no longer separated. As for the other core disciples, they no longer addressed each other as exalted immortals. When do you plan to depart? Han Mei Immortal Venerable smiled and asked the two. 3 days later, it will be the Academy's challenge. At that time, we will go with Master and Uncle Master. Ling Ninglu said. We will go back to Heavenly Mist City and visit our family. The two of them had already stepped into the human immortal realm. Now, they only needed to report to the Elite Academy and they would be qualified to step out of the Wuji Star. Once they left, they did not know how many years it would take for them to return. Alright, Master will send someone to bring you back. After you leave, Master will seal Chenhao's palace. If there is any news, Master will inform you immediately. We will. The sisters said firmly. It had been 10 years. In the past 10 years, other than the 6 of them, only Han Mei and Yun Wei could enter Chenhao's palace. They went in with anticipation and came out with disappointment. In the past 10 years, Chenhao did not change at all and there were no signs of him waking up. Luckily, the treasure-hunting sword spirit would appear from time to time to comfort and encourage them. Otherwise, they would be in despair. Under the protection of 10 experts at the peak of the late human immortal realm, the Lung sisters returned to Heavenly Mist City. In the past 10 years, due to the rise of the Lung sisters in the central continent, the Lung family had become a powerful existence in Heavenly Mist City. What made the two of them even more embarrassed was that they actually had an uncle, the flesh and blood of their grandfather, and he was very talented. This allowed the two of them to easily obtain Lung Kongye's permission and made the oath between Lung Kongye and Chenhao a joke. Let's go. 3 days later, Han Mei, Yun Wei, and the sisters led the hundreds of disciples from the 2 halls who had registered for the competition and stepped into the sacred land of the central continent, Wuji Elite Academy. If Chenhao saw 2 of them, he would definitely be incomparably gratified. They were Qin Nan and Qin Yen. Chapter 472. 10 years later, Qin Nan and Qin Yen had already displayed extraordinary talent. They had surpassed Mo Yui, Dong Fangjun and the rest and had reached the manifestation realm. Their battle power was extremely strong. At the initial stage of the manifestation realm, they already had the ability to fight with experts at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm. They had already become the top geniuses among their peers in Yunwei Hall. Although there was still a huge gap between them and Chenhao, they were much stronger than Huyan Aoba and the rest. Of course, it was not strength, but talent. Yunwei Hall and Winter Plum Hall had the highest chance of passing the Elite Academy's qualifiers. Aunt Huan, Aunt Lu. Sister Huan, Sister Lu, 2 completely different voices and greetings. The one who called her sister was the petite Qin Yen, who was slightly thin and weak, but was very moving. There was a faint sadness between her brows that did not match her age. It had been 10 years. She had already known about Chenhao's situation, but after stepping into the central mainland, she could only visit him once a year. Her brother was the sky in her heart. She had been very attached to her brother since she was young. But ever since Chenhao entered the Xiao family, it was not easy for her to see her brother even once. For Chenhao, she cultivated with all her might. When she stepped into the central continent, she thought that she would finally be able to see her brother more often. However, she did not expect that Chenhao's so-called enlightenment state in the eastern continent was actually a coma. Moreover, he had not woken up even now. She saw Chenhao, but no matter how she called out to him, no matter how much she cried, Chenhao couldn't hear her, see her, or respond to her. Her brother was her sky. At that moment, she felt that the sky had collapsed. If not for the treasure hunter sword spirit appearing to comfort her, She did not know if she would have been able to live until now. When she was young, she was attached to her brother. When she grew up, she secretly loved her brother. Now that she had become a beautiful young lady, she no longer hid her feelings for her brother. Chen Shui could, so why couldn't she? Her brother was a gift from the heavens to her parents, and also to her. Therefore, whether it was Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Ling Ning Huan, Ling Ning Lu, she only called them elder sister and never called them sister-in-law. Chen Nan, who was already in his 20s, was tall and slender. His appearance was 80% similar to his father, Chen Hai. However, his aura was cold and masculine. His eyes were as heavy as a mountain and contained a sense of unswerving determination. He addressed her as sister-in-law. He also knew Xiao Yan's feelings for his brother, and no one knew it better than him. In his opinion, the best home for Xiao Yan was his brother. His brother was not his parents' biological son, and they would know that when they became sensible. His big brother had been his idol since he was young. It was the safest and happiest thing for his little sister to be with his big brother. No one else deserved to have a younger sister. How is big brother now? Are there any changes? Chen Yan asked. Chen Nan also looked at Ling Ning Huan and Ling Ning Lu with anticipation. Unfortunately, Ling Ning Huan and Ling Ning Lu could only shake their heads helplessly. Brother How will wake up one day. What we need to do now is to cultivate. The selection is about to begin. Don't be distracted, okay? Senior Immortal Han Mei and Senior Immortal Yun Wei saw the determination in Chen Nan and Chen Yan's eyes. They looked at each other and did not remind them to avoid affecting their state of mind. However, both of them had already made up their minds. The appearance of Fang Handong from Broken Heart Hall had undoubtedly made the selection more dangerous. However, both of them would not say it until the last moment. After all, there were 340,000 disciples who had signed up for the selection this year. As long as they were not in the same group as Fang Handong, there was nothing to worry about. They were both in the blessed realm, but it was rather difficult for them to kill someone in the tournament. At the same time, on the way to the Holy Land Elite Academy, an old man and a young man were flying side by side in the void. Behind them were more than 30 young genius disciples. Based on their auras, it was obvious that they were all manifestation realm experts. These disciples would occasionally look at the young man who was flying side by side with the old man. Their eyes were filled with envy and respect from the bottom of their hearts. This old man was the master of Broken Heart Hall, Fan Suixin. As for the young man, he was Fang Handong, who had become famous in the central continent in just a few months. He was known as the monstrous genius of the boundless world. Handong, have you read the details of the participating disciples from Winter Plum Hall and Yunwei Hall? Yes, master, Fang Handong said flatly. Fang Handong said faintly. A frightening coldness flashed across his handsome face, and there was an imperceptible viciousness in the depths of his eyes. Remember, in the first test, if you meet any disciples from these two halls, kill them without mercy. The hatred between Broken Heart Hall and them has reached its climax. With your current identity and status, as long as you don't do anything too obvious, no one will dare to make things difficult for you. The Palace Masters of Wuji Immortal Palace and Devil Palace will give you a way out. Do you understand? Don't worry, as long as I meet them, no matter who they are, they will definitely die. Fang Handong said straightforwardly. If I'm not mistaken, they are Qin Hao's younger brother and sister. Master, have you made the arrangements? Of course, I didn't have such power in the past. However, thanks to you, I only needed to reveal this information to a few good friends and they supported me greatly. Even the members of the arbitration team from Wuji Immortal Palace and Devil Palace gave me face. This is a small matter. Master has to thank you. Fan Suixin looked at Fang Handong with gratification. His old face was brimming with a smile. Over the past 10 years, because of the death of Soul Fighter, a super genius whom he had spent countless resources to nurture, he hated Chen Hao and the others to the bone. 10 years ago, during the selection, he had made preparations together with the great halls where the geniuses were killed by Chen Hao. Unfortunately, Chen Hao did not participate in the selection. Later, He found out through other channels that Chen Hao had fallen into a coma. He was both happy and dissatisfied. He was happy because there was a rumor that Chen Hao's soul had been severely damaged and he had turned into an idiot. He was dissatisfied because this result was too easy for Chen Hao. In the following few years, their limitless Devil Palace had been targeting the Winter Plum Hall and Yunwei Hall's disciples. Unfortunately, the two halls were on guard against them. Although they had caused the other side to suffer losses several times and even killed many of their disciples, none of them were important. Later, Chen Shui and the other girls broke through one after another, which made him even more desperate. But this year, Fang Handong, a peerless monstrous genius, had actually fallen in front of him like a pie. Countless great halls of the Devil Palaces that were even more powerful than the Broken Heart Palace had extended an olive branch to him, but Fang Handong had actually chosen him. In just a few months, he had gained the favor of the palace master of Wuxia Immortal Palace. He had won the heart of the palace master's direct disciple. This had raised Broken Heart Hall's status in Wuxia Immortal Palace by a lot. How could he not be happy? What made him even happier was that this disciple was very concerned about the knot in his heart. Fang Handong had clearly reached the point where he could trigger the heavenly punishment, but he had suppressed his aura just to help him fulfill his wish. "You're welcome," Fang Handong said as he looked into the distance. Fan Suixin did not notice the strange light in his disciple's eyes. "Kill them? How could I, Fang Handong, do that for a trash like you? This is the knot in my heart." All these years, it was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. "Chen Hao, I should thank you. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your strong father. If I hadn't been forced into a corner by you, I wouldn't have been forced into a dead end. If I hadn't been forced into a dead end, I wouldn't be where I am today. I was strong enough to reach the nascent soul realm, but you were already the #1 cultivator in the Eastern continent. I could only endure. But in the end, I couldn't endure and paid a price to return to the secular world. I couldn't take revenge on you for the time being, so I could only attack your family to vent a little of my hatred for you. But I didn't expect that I would almost lose my life. Is it funny that a nascent soul realm cultivator almost lost his life in the secular world? I don't know who it was, but I know that it must be the person who protected you. Unfortunately, at that time, he had the ability to kill me, but he let me go. Let me go. I thought that I would never have the chance to be your enemy in my life. But the heavens gave me another chance. The great war of the immortals, demons, and demons. I didn't want to drag out an ignoble existence, so I escaped to the devil realm and soon became a core disciple of the top sect in the devil realm. But I know that I'm still too far away from you. I still have no hope at all. But the heavens obviously favor me and let me gain a blessing in disguise. Fang Handong stared at the endless void, and a huge wave of emotions surged in his mind. Half-step human immortal Oda Xieching, disrespectful as an old man, failed the divine punishment and became an itinerant immortal. But he wanted to possess my powerful body. Coincidences led to today's Fang Handong, who was once Xiao Jihan, Dongfang Han. Disregarding everything else, Oda Xieching's possession of Dongfang Han was a great opportunity. After failing the divine punishment, Oda Xieching was lucky enough to become an itinerant immortal. It was not difficult for him to possess any cultivator below the human immortal realm. But when Oda Xieching discovered Dongfang Han, who had emerged from the sect, he attacked when the divine punishment severely injured him. In his opinion, Dongfang Han, who had just reached the incarnation realm, could be easily possessed by him. With his cultivation of the human immortal realm, he would be able to perfectly integrate with Dongfang Han's powerful body in a few years. At that time, his success rate would be higher when he triggered the divine punishment again. An itinerant immortal could not satisfy his ambition. But he did not expect Dongfang Han's will to be so strong that it was unimaginable, and even formed the embryonic form of the indestructible sword soul. So it was a tragedy. He went for wool and came home shorn. He allowed Dongfang Han to be reborn and refined his soul bit by bit. Today, a few years later, Dongfang Han had grown to a terrifying extent. "You've fallen into a coma?" Then I'll kill everyone around you that I can kill. The day you wake up will be the day I settle the score with you. Chen Nan, Chen Yen, your dearest little brother and sister, ha. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 473. The pain was getting more and more terrifying. Time and time again, Chen Hao's soul was crushed, and Chen Hao was reformed again and again. The soul, the illusory soul, the soul without a physical body, became smaller and smaller in the process of being crushed and reformed again and again. However, it was getting purer and purer, just like the compression of gas. After 3 years, Chen Hao's soul had shrunk by 100 times. After 6 years, it had shrunk by 1,000 times. After 10 years, it had reached 10,000 times. After repeated trials, Chen Hao's will became firmer and purer. However, the pain he had to endure also increased exponentially. The pain that exceeded the limit continued to climb, as if it was endless. Chen Hao gritted his teeth. Crazy, crazy. He clung to his last belief. I can't die. Bang. Just as Venerable Immortal Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei were leading the group towards the Holy Land Elite Academy, Chen Hao's crazy, painful, and arrogant roar rang in his mind again. That was a battle with the heavenly Tao, a roar against fate. However, under the terrifying pain, it was crushed into powder again. This time, it was even more terrifying than before. Rumble, Not good. Immediately, there were continuous explosions in Chen Hao's brain. Pieces of space turned into nothingness. The entire brain was shrinking at an alarming speed. It was destroyed as if the world was about to collapse. The huge movement made Old God, treasure-hunting sword spirit, Itoda, and the 5 mythological beasts who were confined by Old God to cultivate under pressure were ejected from the space collapse. All of them exclaimed in shock. The brain space is collapsing. It's over. At this moment, even Old God's face turned pale. He was terrified. After waiting for a long time, he finally received the inheritance from Chen Hao. But now, is it still wrong this time? Is it wrong again? Or was it wrong from the beginning? Old God's expression was filled with pain and fear. He looked at the rapidly collapsing brain world and muttered. The collapse of the mental world meant that Chen Hao's consciousness had completely vanished. Otherwise, as long as there was a shred of obsession remaining, the mental world would be stable. Over the past 10 years, the Old God and the treasure hunter sword spirit had been constantly paying attention to the terrifying and unapproachable Black. The Old God knew better than anyone how much pain Chen Hao had suffered, but to be able to persist for 10 years without being destroyed, the Old God believed that no matter how long it took, Chen Hao would definitely be able to survive this most difficult life and death situation. However, he did not expect that the outcome would still fail. No. Looking at the collapsing and shrinking space, 2 bright lights suddenly flashed in his eyes, like a drowning person who had grabbed the last straw to save his life. The collapse of the mental world should be completed in an instant. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. His consciousness has not completely dissipated. Definitely not. Succeed. You must succeed. Condense. To rumble. As Chen Hao waved his hand, boundless divine power burst out from his entire mind world under the Old God's control. The spirit spring, the mutated panther fruit, the spirit tree, and countless precious ores exploded in Chen Hao's mind world with a rumbling sound. They turned into endless mysterious runes and madly resisted the rapidly collapsing space. 5 divine beasts. Suppress. Roars that reverberated through the world erupted from the mouths of the 5 divine beasts. Under Old God's control, the 5 divine beasts condensed into cosmic forms that were thousands of feet tall. They turned into 5 streams of light that descended from the sky and suppressed the 5 directions. In this state, Old God could not get close to Chen Hao in the terrifying black spot, nor could he awaken Chen Hao's nearly collapsing consciousness. Stopping Chen Hao's brain world from collapsing was the only thing he could do. It was also the only thing he could do to help Chen Hao. It was to buy him some time. So comfortable, the pain wasn't scary. Neither was the shattering of the soul. Chen Hao couldn't remember how many times he had been shattered. He also didn't know how many times the pain had exceeded his limit. However, he knew that he couldn't die. He had to face the pain and endure it. He didn't believe that he would be defeated by the pain. This kind of pain that came from the depths of the soul was something that no one could escape from. They could only endure it and face it. However, he had persevered. How many years had passed? How many long years had it been? Chen Hao didn't know. However, he knew that there was always a ray of hope in the world. As long as he persevered and persevered, there would be a day when he would overcome the most terrifying calamity in his life. However, the sudden increase in the soul's collapse this time was completely different from the previous collapses. After the soul turned into dust again, all the pain disappeared. It disappeared completely. You're very sleepy. Sleep, you're tired. Rest, have a good sleep. His father, mother, and all the people that Chen Hao couldn't let go of appeared in the last strand of Chen Hao's consciousness. The endless pain disappeared. The peaceful, warm, and caring words made Chen Hao's last strand of consciousness become hazy and muddle-headed. A wave of endless drowsiness gushed out, making him want to sleep. He wanted to be free. Rumble, so noisy. A series of explosions suddenly appeared in his consciousness. Chen Hao, who was about to fall into a deep sleep, suddenly woke up with a start. His drowsiness was completely gone. So dangerous. Condense for me. Hiss. The collapse in his mind suddenly stopped. In the Soul Palace, the soul fragments started to gather again. Without the influence of pain, Chen Hao's recovery speed reached an unprecedented speed. A strand of consciousness grew rapidly. In an instant, it emitted a dazzling light. When the soul was completely condensed, a complete soul that was 100,000 times smaller than the original soul appeared in the Soul Palace. What was more shocking was that the originally illusory soul now seemed to have turned into a crystal stone, emitting an extremely pure pressure of consciousness. The real transformation was a success. Earth Celestial. My soul strength has reached the Earth Celestial stage. Earth Celestial stage, void crystallization, crystallization of thought. Endless comfort grew in the depths of Chen Hao's soul. He could clearly feel that his consciousness was many times stronger than before. His soul perception had reached a terrifying level. At this moment, he didn't try to perceive it deliberately, but the enormous area of Winter Plum Hall appeared clearly in his mind. This was a transformation. A real transformation of the soul. Chen Hao, master. Just when Chen Hao was still immersed in the excitement of this transformation, the excited voices of the old god and the treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Oh God! Treasure hunting! How did I get to Winter Plum Hall? Where are they? How long have I been unconscious? 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or longer? Hearing the words of the old god and the treasure-hunting sword spirit, Chen Hao suddenly remembered what had happened before he fell into a coma. His body had not reacted at all for 10 years. At this moment, he was drenched in cold sweat, and his heart was filled with worries. In his mind, he had been unconscious for a very long time. 10 years? Master, you have been unconscious for 10 years. You are finally awake. Finally awake? The old god suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, 10 years? 10 years? That's good. That's good. Tell me what happened after I fell into a coma. But this is the holy land of the boundless land, Elite Academy X. Hiss. Countless silhouettes flew in the air in teams. There were at most a few hundred people, and at least 3 to 5 people. They filled the entire sky, and even the weakest among them was at the Destiny realm. Everyone's faces were brimming with confidence and anticipation as they stared at the holy land that they were about to reach. Elite Academy X, tens of thousands of rays of multicolored light, the auspicious light soared to the heavens. One simply couldn't see the end of it. What a dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But I can actually sense the laws of heaven and earth here? As expected of the Holy Land. This is 100 times, 1,000 times better than our Great Hall. The young disciples of Cold Plum Hall and Yunwei Hall who had registered for the competition all revealed shocked expressions as they spoke with astonishment. This is still outside the boundaries of the elite academy. When you reach the area enveloped by the auspicious light, you will understand how strong the elite academy is. This is the holy land of our limitless planet, the cradle of true experts. Just the area it occupies has a radius of 100 million miles. Apotheon Yunwei explained. As long as you can pass the selection competition and become a student of the elite academy, even the lowest level student will be able to get your own palace in the elite academy. I dare not say that cultivating here will allow you to advance by leaps and bounds, but compared to cultivating in our great hall, it will be 100 times better. Huan and Lele are the best proof. Hum. Before Apotheon Han Mei could finish her sentence, her expression suddenly changed, and her voice stopped abruptly. What's wrong? Apotheon Yunwei frowned and asked. Something big happened in the Great Hall. As Han Mei answered, a ray of light flashed, and the Hall Master token appeared in her hand. Her mind directly entered it to read the message. Under normal circumstances, only urgent matters would be sent directly to her through the Hall Master token. For ordinary emergencies, one message would be enough. But this time, there were 10 consecutive messages. Even Han Mei Immortal Venerable became nervous when she didn't see the message. Hall Master, Chen Hao has awakened. Hall Master, Chen Hao has awakened. Hall Master, Chen Hao wants to participate in the competition. Please register for him. Hall Master, Chen Hao has left the Great Hall. 10 consecutive messages that were exactly the same made Han Mei's eyes widen. Her hand that was holding the token trembled slightly. Han Mei, are you okay? Apotheon Yunwei asked nervously. Because of the relationship between Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the rest, the relationship between the two great halls had long been like one. The friendship between Apotheon Yunwei and Han Mei had reached the point where they could talk about anything. Leng Ning Huan, Leng Ning Lu, Chen Nan, Chen Yen, and countless other disciples were looking at Venerable Han Mei nervously. They were slightly surprised in their hearts. After all, as a hall master, it was rare for Venerable Han Mei to be so nervous and excited in front of others. Chen Hao has awakened. Chapter 474. This true? Brother Hao. Master, we want to go back. Venerable Han Mei's short words made Venerable Yunwei, the sisters, Chen Nan, and Chen Yan's expressions change greatly. The sisters wanted to leave immediately. Wait, Venerable Han Mei stopped the two and said, he's already here. Master, ask him about the situation first. Venerable Han Mei directly sent a message through the Palace Master token. After a moment, her expression became shocked again, and she said, Realm unknown. What do you mean? Venerable Yunwei asked. He wants us to help him register for the competition, but the Deputy Palace Master can't sense his realm. How is this possible? Your Deputy Palace Master is an Earth Immortal. How can he not sense his aura? Venerable Yunwei said in surprise. Even a low-level cultivator could roughly sense the aura of a high-level cultivator, unless the cultivator had a secret art that could hide his aura. But high-level cultivators could sense the aura of an Earth Immortal cultivator, especially an Earth Immortal cultivator. Even if he had a secret art that could hide his aura, it would be impossible to hide. But the Deputy Palace Master couldn't sense Chen Hao's aura, which was a bit abnormal. Venerable Han Mei also shook her head in puzzlement and said, there are too many strange things about this kid. After sleeping for 10 years, he woke up. Yunwei, take everyone to Elite Academy X. I'll go to Spirit City to pick him up and help him register. Huan, Lele, wait for me at Elite Academy X, okay? Oh, Venerable Yunwei and the sisters replied. Although the sisters, Chen Nan and Chen Yen wanted to see Chen Hao immediately, if Han Mei Immortal Venerable brought them along, the speed would definitely be much slower. This Venerable Han Mei's figure turned into a stream of light and broke through the sky. Spirit City. It was the most powerful city in the central continent. Under normal circumstances, only immortal supremes were qualified to step into Spirit City. It was also the only city where all the immortal supremes in the boundless continent gathered, traded, and stepped out of the boundless star. In fact, as long as they had free time, many immortal venerables would be stationed in Spirit Realm City, including Han Mei and Yun Wei. This was because Spirit Realm City also had a special function. Only cultivators with the qualifications to become members of Vast Universe Galaxy could use this function. This is Spirit City? What a mysterious aura! A handsome and otherworldly figure appeared in the teleportation array area. Tens of thousands of young disciples were lined up in 10 long lines, waiting to be tested. As for some immortal venerables, they were able to pass through unimpeded. Clearly, these young disciples were the ones who had signed up for the Elite Academy's qualifiers. Fang Handong will definitely win the first place in this preliminaries. Who can rival him with the combat capability of a human celestial? It's not something we can compare to. That's right. This Fang Handong is really a man of great fortune. He was able to reach the half-step human immortal realm in a remote place like the Eastern continent at such a young age. He really lives up to his reputation as a once-in-a-thousand-years genius in the boundless continent. Even the top few monstrous geniuses in the Elite Academy can't be compared to him. That's right. It's said that the Eastern continent is rather barren. Whether it's the relics, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, or the cultivation resources, they are all miles away from us. But for him to reach such a level in the Eastern continent, it's absolutely incredible. Hundreds of thousands of people are participating in the qualifiers. I just hope that I won't be in the same group as him. Otherwise, I'll definitely be eliminated. If I'm really in the same group, I'll be too unlucky. There are more than 300,000 people in a group of 100, but there are more than 3,000 groups. The chances are very small. Moreover, when we're grouping, we'll naturally take into account our battle records. As long as we're strong enough, there won't be a situation where the strong meet the strong. Otherwise, if I'm in the same group as him, wouldn't that be burying a genius like me? In the group, there was a buzz of discussion. Most of the discussions were related to the Elite Academy's qualifiers. What surprised Chen Hao was that among the tens of thousands of people, at least 1/3 of them mentioned a name, Fang Handong. What surprised Chen Hao even more was that this Fang Handong was actually from the Eastern continent. There's actually such a powerful genius in the Eastern continent? Fang Handong. Combat power of the mortal-immortal realm. A monstrous genius in the boundless continent that only appears once in 1,000 years. Chosen by the Palace Master of the Limitless Demon Palace? Disciple of the Limitless Demon Palace's Heartbroken Hall? Out of curiosity, Chen Hao didn't filter out the discussions of the crowd. In a moment, some information about Fang Handong appeared in Chen Hao's ears. Originally, Chen Hao was just slightly amazed that there was always someone better than him. However, when he heard that this monstrous genius named Fang Handong was actually from the Heartbroken Hall, he frowned slightly. Fang Handong, disciple of the Eastern continent's demon sect. Not old, just over 30 years old. Suddenly rose to prominence in the central continent half a year ago. Rejected countless forces and took the initiative to join the Heartbroken Hall. Fang Handong. Could it be? It can't be so coincidental, right? Back then, the Jinyuan Kingdom did their best to help me find him, but in the end, they couldn't find him. Later on, even the Xuanwu Empire was mobilized, but there was no news. Basically, I can conclude that that guy should have died in the wilderness, and not even his bones were left. After all, he was just a small martial master at that time, and he was also seriously injured. However, this name, it's just that the order is reversed. Even if it's Dong Fang Han, his age is correct, and he's from the Eastern continent. However, even if he didn't die, he should have stepped into the Eastern continent's immortal realm. How did he end up in the demon sect? Could it be that it was during the chaos of the three realms 10 years ago? However, if this Fang Handong is really him, how could he be unknown in the immortal realm? Chen Hao thought about it and felt that it was unlikely that it was Xiao Jihan, who was also Dongfang Han. This was because it was a little inconceivable. However, with all these coincidences, he couldn't completely rule out this possibility. In fact, only Chen Hao would link Fang Handong and Dongfang Han together. It couldn't be helped. When Dongfang Han escaped, it was Chen Hao's biggest worry. Hello, are you also a disciple participating in the Elite Academy's challenge? Just as Chen Hao was gathering information about Fang Handong, a young cultivator standing in front of Chen Hao turned around and looked at Chen Hao. There was a hint of curiosity in his eyes as he asked. Chen Hao looked at the person and replied, "How should I address you, brother? My name is Li Chao, a disciple of the Li family of Ocean Jade City. Chen Hao, a disciple of the Winter Plum Hall of the Limitless Immortal Palace." Chen Hao smiled slightly. A disciple of the Limitless Immortal Palace? When I saw that you were alone, I thought that you were from a small family like me. I didn't expect Brother Chen to be a disciple of the Limitless Immortal Palace. No wonder I couldn't sense your realm aura. This should be the Limitless Immortal Palace's secret technique to restrain one's aura, right? You can't sense my realm aura? Hearing the young cultivator's words, Chen Hao was slightly stunned. I didn't expect that after my soul materialized, it would restrain to such a realm. After waking up and learning about the situation from the old god, Chen Hao immediately paid a visit to the Vice Palace Master of the Winter Plum Hall and rushed to Spirit City. He didn't even carefully check the condition of his body. If he hadn't heard the cultivator's words, Chen Hao wouldn't have realized how much his aura had been retracted. Chen Hao smiled as a reply to Li Chao. At the same time, he released a little bit of his aura. Amazing! Brother Chen is only at the early stage of the manifestation realm. To be able to restrain your aura to such a realm. Clearly, your potential is very high. In a few years, Brother Chen will definitely become a disciple of the Elite Academy. Probably much faster than me. Brother Chen, don't mind me. I'm just speaking the truth. Without the strength of the late stage of the manifestation realm, it's basically impossible to pass the first round of elimination. Although I'm at the late stage of the manifestation realm, passing the first round of elimination is not a big problem. However, the following tests have nothing to do with realms. They are all tests of potential. If I had Brother Chen's potential, I would definitely pass. Li Chao said with a smile. Li Chao was a cultivator at the late stage of the blessed realm, but he could not sense Chen Hao's aura. This indeed surprised him. After all, Chen Hao was right in front of him, and this was completely different from the state of using a concealment technique. In such a situation, unless he used a spiritual treasure to conceal his realm aura, he had to have practiced the concealment technique to the extreme. How many people in the cultivation world had spiritual treasures? Therefore, Li Chao concluded that Chen Hao was a super genius with great talent and comprehension. It's okay. Brother Li, I've been in seclusion. This is the first time I'm participating in the Elite Academy's qualifiers. What are the rounds of the qualifiers? Oh? Brother Chen doesn't even know this? It's very simple. The entire competition has two major rounds. The first is the elimination round, which is a test of absolute combat power. 100 people will be divided into small groups. The group will have a free-for-all. The final winner will enter the second major round of the competition. Under normal circumstances, those who can pass the free-for-all are basically experts above the late stage of the manifestation realm. Of course, there are exceptions for demon-level geniuses. Every year, there are hundreds of demon-level geniuses. The second major round is the test of potential. The final ranking is also based on potential. The first round of elimination is just to eliminate people. The Elite Academy is most concerned about potential. Those who pass the qualifiers are basically certain that they will be able to advance to the Immortal Prime realm in the future. So simple? Chen Hao was slightly surprised. Of course. Don't tell me you think there will be a huge battle? I thought so too when I first participated. Before Chen Hao reached Spirit City, Immortal Prime Han Mei had already arrived at Spirit City. The office of Wuji Elite Academy was stationed here. Immortal Prime Han Mei, what are you doing? Helping one of my disciples register. Register? He's an elite guardian. This is his information. Please help to enter it as soon as possible. Elite Guardian, congratulations Immortal Prime Han Mei. It's harder to have this title than to become a disciple of the Elite Academy. I remember that 10 years ago, you had someone called Chen Hao. After that, I heard that something happened. I didn't expect that there would be another one. This is the Chen Hao from 10 years ago. Immortal Prime Han Mei said calmly. Chapter 475. Please show your guardian token. In the teleportation area, after waiting for half an hour, it was finally Chen Hao's turn. It took me more than an hour to rush here from Cold Plum Hall and another half an hour to wait here. Cold Plum Immortal should have registered for me? Chen Hao estimated in his heart and took out his guardian token. Beep beep beep. Number 46,184? The old man in charge of checking information, after reading the information on Chen Hao's token, showed a hint of surprise on his face. He looked at Chen Hao. Not bad, go ahead, I wish you good results. Thank you, senior. Chen Hao cupped his fist and said. After that, he stepped out of the door. Brother Chen, your serial number? The cultivator named Li Chao, who was waiting for Chen Hao at the door, looked at Chen Hao with a hint of shock. I didn't expect Brother Chen to be an elite guardian. Ordinary registration ended 3 months ago. At that time, Li Chao was clear about the number of participants. Chen Hao's serial number was obviously registered in the last 2 days. At this time, there was only one situation where one could register, and that was to be an elite guardian of the League of Defender. Any cultivator who could become an elite guardian could become a disciple of the Elite Academy, but the disciples of the Elite Academy might not necessarily become an elite guardian. An elite guardian. Amazing, what's his name? I just heard him say that his name is Chen Hao, a disciple of Limitless Immortal Palace's Cold Plum Hall. Almost in an instant, the young cultivators nearby began to talk. They looked at Chen Hao with envy and surprise. I'll go first. Chen Hao was also quite speechless. He didn't expect the old man in charge of checking to just say his serial number and let others guess his identity as an elite guardian. He greeted Li Chao, turned into a stream of light, and quickly went out. Chen Hao here? A familiar voice floated to Chen Hao's ears, and a figure quietly appeared beside Chen Hao. Greetings, master. Chen Hao cupped his fists and bowed with a smile on his face. Follow me. Venerable Han Mei gazed at Chen Hao for a moment and said softly. As he spoke, he sent out a stream of energy to envelop Chen Hao, who then disappeared from where he stood. What happened to you in the past 10 years? In Spirit Realm City, no one could tear the void. Immortal Venerable Han Mei and Chen Hao only hid their aura and flew out of the city with extreme speed. I don't know what happened. I just fainted, Chen Hao said. He really fainted? Han Mei Venerable looked at Chen Hao with dissatisfaction. Not entirely. I fell into a terrifying illusion, and I lost all sense of the outside world. I couldn't wake up even if I wanted to. It wasn't until today when the illusion disappeared that I woke up, Chen Hao explained. He really didn't know how he had entered such a terrifying state. Even Old God didn't know what happened. He only guessed that it was because of his mutated soul. However, Chen Hao definitely couldn't tell Venerable Han Mei about this. How do you feel now? I mean, your soul is injured. It's okay, I should have recovered. Vice Palace Master said he couldn't determine your realm. What's going on? Completely restrain your aura and let me see. Cough cough. Chen Hao slightly hesitated but still obediently retracted his aura. Everyone guessed that his coma was due to his soul being injured. However, in the past 10 years, not only did Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei not give up on him, they also didn't interfere with his relationship with Chen Shui, Helian Wu Zi and the others. This made Chen Hao feel very grateful. Chen Hao obviously knew that the reason why the two didn't interfere was because of the girl's insistence. However, no matter if it was for the girls or for some other reason, it was very rare in the cruel and ruthless cultivation world. Moreover, in the past 10 years, the palace he was in was always in a state of top-quality spiritual energy. Just this treatment alone was the best treatment among all the disciples of Cold Plum Hall. Hiss hiss hiss. Chen Hao didn't even need to do it deliberately. The aura around his body disappeared completely into thin air, and not a trace of it remained. I really can't sense it? Even I can't sense it? At first, Venerable Han Mei still had a skeptical attitude. However, now that she saw Chen Hao, she was really shocked. You've cultivated a unique skill that can shield your aura? You can say so. After I fell into that state, the only thing I could do for 10 years was to restrain my aura as much as possible. Otherwise, my soul might be destroyed, Chen Hao said as he communicated with Old God in his mind. According to Old God, if he told the truth, Venerable Han Mei would definitely know that Chen Hao's soul had transformed to the realm of an expert in the Earth's celestial realm. How shocking would it be if he was only in the early stage of the creation realm? It was more appropriate to say so. Firstly, it could prove that his soul injury had basically recovered. Secondly, it wouldn't be too shocking. So, you've comprehended a unique skill that can shield your aura? You're only in the creation realm, but you can hide it from my eyes. So, this unique skill is at least in the Earth's celestial realm. Fortunately, you're really surprising. Someone else signed up? It must be an elite guardian. These guys are really annoying. It's as if they're afraid that others don't know that they're elite guardians. Why did they have to sign up so late? We have to adjust the groups. Who is it? Wuxia Immortal Palace. Cold Plum Hall, Chen Hao. What? This guy woke up? It should be. The information is correct. This guy signed up 10 years ago. At that time, he attracted a lot of attention from the higher-ups. However, later, the information collected confirmed that he burned 800 years of his life and killed many experts at the peak of the late stage of the creation realm. His soul was seriously injured and he fell into a deep sleep. Now that he's awake, I'm afraid he's useless. Of course. 800 years of life is equivalent to 4/5 of his soul being destroyed. It would be strange if he's not useless. At this time, he still dares to sign up. Moreover, there's no news of him waking up. Otherwise, his status as an elite guardian would definitely be revoked. Jin Tian, do we need to arrange a special group with him? There's no need. Even though he's a disciple of Wuxia Immortal Palace, he's already useless. You can arrange any group you want. I don't care, the old man called Jin Tian said. That's good. This is someone that Fan Suixin hates to the core. Why don't we replace Chen Nan and put him in Fang Handong's group? That's not good. It's a little too obvious. This guy is definitely useless, but his status as an elite guardian hasn't been revoked. If we do that, we're not giving face to the alliance. What do you mean? Just throw him into a group of experts at the late stage of the creation realm under Fan Suixin. His soul is seriously injured, and he's only at the early stage of the creation realm. I believe that the alliance won't say anything about our arrangement. Elite guardians are all monstrous geniuses who are at least 2 small realms above them. If he can't deal with an opponent at the late stage of the creation realm, it's none of our business. That's right. Let's do that. There were a large number of contestants. When the normal registration ended, the first elimination round of the mixed battle began. Under normal circumstances, the groups were coordinated according to the realms and battle records of all the contestants to avoid the situation where the strong met the strong. Moreover, the disciples of the major forces, especially the 3 major palaces, would not be in the same group. This was also a treatment that only the super forces had. Wuxia Elite Academy. They're here. Apotheon Yun Wei, who was sitting in the courtyard, suddenly stood up and stared at the void in the distance with a trace of expectation. Chen Yen clenched her fists excitedly, and her petite body trembled a little. The faint worry between her eyebrows had long disappeared, and it was replaced by incomparable excitement and expectation. The sisters were also nervous and excited, and their faces shone with a touch of excitement. Chen Nan took a deep breath and stared in the direction that Apotheon Yunwei was looking at with a sharp gaze. At this moment, except for Apotheon Yunwei, even the sisters who had stepped into the human immortal realm couldn't see the slightest clue. After a moment, two figures flying quickly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. "10 years. Staring at the handsome figure who was obviously also very excited, she could no longer suppress her emotions. "Brother!" Chen Yen was the first to fearlessly rush over. The sisters who had wanted to rush over forcibly held themselves back. They could only stare blankly at the figure. It was the first time in 10 years that the figure had appeared in front of them with a clear mind. Chen Nen clenched his fists tightly. He, who had always been cold and calm, was now full of excitement and admiration. Although his brother's aura was not as strong as his, it didn't affect his brother's lofty image in his heart. How could his brother be measured by his cultivation stage? "Xiao Yen," Chen Hao smiled and opened his arms. Just like before, Chen Yen clung tightly to Chen Hao's neck and rubbed her face hard on Chen Hao's face. Her eyes were full of tears, and she was so excited that she couldn't speak. "In 10 years, you've all surpassed me." When he slowly landed in front of everyone with Chen Yen in his arms, Chen Hao looked at Chen Nan and the sisters and said with a trace of relief and excitement in his voice, "Brother Hao, brother." "Senior brother Chen Hao." "Senior brother Chen Hao." Everyone greeted Chen Hao. However, aside from the sisters and Chen Nan, the others looked at Chen Hao respectfully, but there was also a hint of curiosity and doubt in their eyes. 10 years ago, Chen Hao was a monstrous genius that they couldn't hope to reach. Now, Chen Hao was only in the initial stage of Blessed Realm, and his soul had been severely injured. Could he still have his former innate talent and fighting strength? That was unknown. But even so, no one dared to underestimate him. Forget about the fact that the women who had confirmed their relationship with Chen Hao did not give up on Chen Hao. Even Chen Hao's younger siblings displayed unparalleled talent. Even if Chen Hao was a cripple, he was not someone they could underestimate. You're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.